Adam. So you asked me if I thought Darth Dawkins was nice. We definitely believe. I believe what Darth is saying. Darth believes what he's saying. There's the argument comes from a guy named Cornelius Van Til. He's a legitimate philosopher, and his students, like John Frame or Greg Bonson, they're legitimate academic philosophers. So it might seem like he's not nice because what he's doing is debate, and debate is like a game, and it's a reason giving game, and you're trying to defeat your opponent. So like when you're playing a game versus someone, Darth is playing to win. So he's assertive. I wouldn't say he's like, I mean, I think he, like, if you have like humility and you're respectful, like he's I think pretty nice to people. So like he's helped me. Um, he'll take the time to explain things to me, or he'll share me links to reading material to help me with like debating. So I mean, he doesn't have to do any of that stuff. So I think that's pretty nice. To deny the Bible is to deny science. It doesn't make sense at all. It does if you understand the philosophy of science, because science requires there to be like order or consistency in the world. Like without consistency in like a conceptual consistency, like a logical consistency or a physical consistency, you couldn't do a scientific experiment, because you have to get repeatable results in science, and the type of world where things are random and there's no order, you can't get repeatable results. And it's either going to be that like the human mind imposes order on reality where order does not exist, or the mind of God inherently endows the world with that order. So science is really like a theistic concept, but they don't tell you these things. They've carefully presented information to people on the mass scale to make it seem like plausible there could be no God, when that's actually not the case. And so what I'm saying sounds like foolish, because you got like kind of a worldly type of wisdom. Welcome, Nico.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm all right.
So, do you disagree with something here?
I don't believe only Christians can make truth claims.
Okay, so what religion are you?
I'm not religious.
Oh, so you're like an agnostic or atheist?
I mean, no, I do believe there is some like higher being. However, I don't believe there is a specific name for it, such as in Christianity. I used to be Christian, actually. How Christianity involves three beings becoming one God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Right.
However, I also believe that in multiple different religions, each God has its own value, and also that each religion or mythology, because it is Christian mythology, all uses their own terms of understanding to understand what happened in the past and even what may lead to the future.
Okay, but if we're talking about like truth claims, we have to like defend our positions. And like the
Well,
problem.
not exactly. Truth claims can be anything because the truth is more or less fact, is it not?
So
So, for a fact that the Bible was written when?
I don't know.
So the Bible supposedly has gone under many updates. The most recent update being in about the
What are we
19.
like? We don't need a community college lecture. Like, what is this?
What I mean is that not all. You can't simply say that only Christians can make truth claims if the truth is simply all things, being that we don't know all things.
What? What are you talking about, dude? You're talking nonsense.
I'm saying that
You know anything?
you can't say only Christians make truth claims
Yes, I
because
can.
not everyone is Christian and they can also speak the truth.
Well, if they do so, they're borrowing from the Christian worldview. Because
So if I tell you that I am a man,
bro,
that's me saying the truth because I am a man, but I'm not Christian. You can't say only Christians make truth
I
claims.
can because any fact requires the Christian God to be a fact. You can't have a fact.
That's not true though.
Absolutely true.
How is it true?
Facts require to have facts. We need things like identity over time or the uniformity of nature.
So
And
that was all that so nature was created
not
by
even listening
science
to what I'm
and
saying.
time was founded by man
Nico,
but also created by
Nico,
science.
what is wrong with you? You're not listening to anything I'm saying. You're acting like an animal.
All right, I'll listen.
To have a fact, we need things like identity over time or uniformity of nature. And only Christian revelation can explain that. Because we can only know God if God reveals himself to us. So if you're going to talk about some higher power, you're just making shit up. Because you can't like logic your way to God. You can't science your way to God. So, I mean, this is the issue, right? You need God's revelation. That's it. That's Christianity.
Okay. And you use Christianity to understand the things around you, correct?
We we either are an environment of revelation or not. Yeah, we need revelation to understand the world.
So what you're saying is just how any other religion uses their religion to understand the beings around them. Christianity is no different.
Every other religion would destroy truth foundationally. Make
How?
truth impossible. Because truth requires like um, a single unifying principle. And only Christians have a single unifying principle in the Christian God.
That's not true.
It
In
is true.
Hinduism, they believe in the great Buddha, which is
It
one
doesn't
God being all powerful of others. Is that not?
it doesn't matter what someone believes. It's like what can you prove? Okay. So
So, just how Hinduism can't prove that the great Buddha exists, you also can't prove that God exists, correct?
we can prove Christianity is true because only Christianity is consistent with observable data,
Such as what?
such as the order in the world or the unity and the unity and diversity in the world is only explained by the Christian Trinitarian God.
So, are you saying that? Okay, then let's say this. Do you believe in homosexuality?
Oh my God, we can't talk about that.
Okay, then my apologies.
Yeah, bad.
Do you believe that with God creating all things and with God being in every single one of us, that God accepts all beings?
accepts all beings. He loves everyone, but he doesn't accept sin.
But he accepts us for who we are because he loves us, correct?
I don't. I don't know what that means. And he sacrificed his son for us, but like,
Because he loves us, correct?
yeah, but if you love the world and you don't love God, he's gonna throw you in a lake of fire.
Then that's not love, nor acceptance.
According to who? You?
No. Love is defined as unconditional. Is it not?
It depends. There's a lot of different ways you can define love. So like divine love, God's love would be unconditional. Yeah.
So therefore, if it is unconditional, he accepts us for who we are, no matter the preference, correct?
I don't know what you mean by accept. You mean like everyone?
Because God loves us, and because God loves every single one of his children. Because at birth, God sent an angel to come in and put a piece of us once we were born, correct? That's what it states in the Bible. And that's what it even states in the church.
Well, God loves everyone. Yeah.
Exactly, because in every single one of us there's a piece of us, correct?
A piece of him. We're made in his image. I don't know. I've never heard. Sure.
And therefore, if we are all made in his image, then we are all loved and therefore are all accepted by God, no matter who we are.
Okay, but just you keep sneaking this word accepted in there, like as if like everyone goes to heaven, and that if you get thrown in the lake of fire, that God doesn't love you. That just it doesn't follow because like imagine you love someone and they commit a horrible crime, right? And they go to prison. J- just because you like love them, like you still probably want them to go to prison because they're danger to society and they could hurt other people.
But that's still unconditional love.
You want them to go to prison because that's like the right thing, that's the just thing to do, but you also still love them. It doesn't there's no contradiction between giving someone their just punishment, their just deserves, and loving them.
So God loves every single human.
Yes.
All right? And to deny Bible is to deny science itself.
Yes. God's
Did
nothing.
you
The Bible's
did you
nothing.
know that all scientists don't believe that most scientists don't believe in Christianity?
Yeah, so that would be like a cognitive dissonance. Do you know what cognitive dissonance is?
I do.
Yeah. Because
Then how does that make sense? Because if it is to deny the Bible is to deny science, then why did God give us science?
what? Science is possible because of God. So to use science to like say the Bible's not true or something, it would be like you wouldn't be able to do that. Are you Googling stuff?
No. I'm actually typing up an essay for my college project.
Okay. Well, yeah. So basically, science for science to be possible, there's certain worlds where science would be impossible. Like if everything's random, for example, right? The world has to be endowed with order from God to do science, and therefore the fact that we can do science is possible. That proves God indirectly. Proves the claims of the Bible. Yeah.
So science proves the Bible,
Indirectly, yeah. Just the mere fact that science is possible proves God, because it's only possible in God's world.
even though science has also proved that the Bible is wrong.
It can't do that.
It quite literally has
Science,
before and plenty of times.
no,
Yes.
no. I know that scientific claims contradict what the Bible says, but that just means there's a problem with science, not that there's a problem with the Bible. Because the
And
Bible,
if there's a problem with science, that's to say that there's a problem with the Bible. Because if God gave us science and science is used in the Bible and the Bible is created from science, then either something is wrong with the Christianity or something is wrong with God itself for giving us science.
so
Even if
then
science can prove that the Bible is wrong.
in philosophy, necessity trumps probability. Okay. And so the Bible is going to be a necessary truth, where science just gives us probabilistic truths. So the science
So
can
did you know it's a probability that you're on Earth?
because necessity trumps probability, science can never disprove the Bible.
Did you know that it's a probability that you're on Earth? Or did you know that it's a fact that you're on Earth?
What are you talking about, man?
Do you know that it is a probability that you are on the planet Earth, that you are currently sitting, standing, wherever you are, or that it is a proven fact and truth that you are on Earth?
These things aren't like necessarily mutually exclusive, so it's kind of a goofy question. Like
You're saying
your
you're
question.
saying that science only gives you probability, correct?
Well, I'm saying that the question you ask demonstrates like a lack of knowledge on the subject.
Did
And
you not say that science only gives you a probability?
Okay. Nico, you're a low information person, are you not?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming.
I've actually been proven on an IQ test. So there's that.
Okay, well then there's something wrong with the test. I wish you well. Holy crap. Welcome, Matt.
What's up?
Just talking to, emotional people. What's up with you?
You constantly make this claim that Christianity is the only thing that has a single unifying principle. Can you explain that?
What it is?
Just you make the assertion. I want to know, like, you make these assertions, but you don't follow it up with because. You just make a statement. So I'd like for you to explain the because, how Christianity is the only thing that has a single unifying principle.
It's a matter of ultimate reality. The question that started metaphysics, what is ultimate reality? The single unifying principle. So originally they would say it's things like fire or air, water, earth. That's where you get the elements. So we're saying that ultimate reality is a personal creator God that revealed himself to us. And the only way we could know ultimate reality is if that's the case. If ultimate reality reveals itself to us, because we can't like reason to ultimate reality and we can't science to ultimate reality. So this is
So what does that mean in layman terms?
the only way you can know what the world is if the world there's like a creator, personal creator God that tells
Okay.
you.
So how'd that work out in Christian? How's that play out in Christianity? You're making you're making a lofty statement. I'm asking for you to get down to the nitty gritty of the detail.
Well, God just creates the universe, and then He can impart knowledge to His creation, His creature.
Okay. So what does Jesus have to do with that?
Well, Jesus is a revelation. So God incarnated as a man, so we could know God. We know God through knowing Jesus.
Okay, but there's other religions that believe that God took man form. So
What are the religion?
I mean, you should go do your own research. I'm not going to do it for you.
Okay. So there's only three religions that have revelation from God. That's Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. And only Christianity has God takes the form of man.
So where does it say form of man's necessary outside the Bible?
Where? never. What are you? I don't know what you're talking about. Well,
Why does Jesus in
saying,
the form of man? Why is that necessary for revelation?
well, it's not necessary for revelation. There's other
So
revelation.
then, okay, so then why does that trump? Why are you saying that trumps uh, Islam?
I mean, there's a lot of
God
problems.
revealed himself. I mean, God revealed himself through his prophet Muhammad and the other prophets. That was revelation. So I'm not sure why the taking the form of man trumps it.
Because Muhammad's a false prophet.
But by objective standards, no, he's no different than Christ.
Of
By
course,
your standards, because you've subscribed to the Bible, you've made a leap of faith. But from objective standards, no.
no, objectively, yet Islam cannot answer the transcendental challenge. Only Christianity can answer the transcendental.
Yeah, you say that, but then explain it.
Only
Don't make a big statement without saying because. If you're making these statements without saying because, you're not really doing a very good job of presenting your argument.
transcendentals are a category of things that needs to be true for our human experience.
Okay, so I know I understand that. So explain to me why Islam doesn't answer that.
So unity and diversity needs to be accounted for in your worldview to answer the transcendental challenge. So you need a triune God, and Islam has a Unitarian God.
You're making broad statements. I want you to get to the nitty gritty. Walk me through it. Like use specifics.
I am being specific.
You're not being specific. You're being very abstract.
Thanks for coming. I wish
Okay, good job. You did awesome.
Is this low information Thursdays?
Be specific. What does that mean? Be specific. Dude, I was very specific. What is he talking about? I don't understand. I literally walked him through the whole thing. And he goes, be specific. What? Welcome, DJ.
Oh yeah, when he was saying be specific, he was saying expound on the things you were saying and back them up with proof and evidence.
That's what I was doing.
No, you weren't.
Why?
You had to be more intellectually honest than that. You weren't giving that information.
What do you think just coming up here and bald-faced lying to me? Like, what does this do for you? I don't understand. You think you can just lie in a debate?
Are you calling me a liar because you wanted to explain yourself?
I was explaining myself. I said we need a Trinitarian God.
You didn't say those words out loud, and that doesn't answer the question. So those are two lies you just gave us.
How would you know it answers the question when you don't even know what the fuck you're talking about?
What's the question?
You're metaphysically R-worded, dude.
Oh, you're going to use slurs now? Oh.
Yeah. So, to answer the transcendental challenge, our world...
No, wait. What was the question?
What are you talking...
I was asking you.
I was explaining to that guy. The transcendental challenge, your world...
You said you answered the question. What was the question?
Thanks for coming. What the fuck is wrong with these people? Welcome, Gio.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Just curious, why do you think that there has to be a God to have logic?
Because logic is going to require an absolute identity statement to secure and impose the identity of anything, like, in actuality.
Well, doesn't logic just require distinction?
Just a distinction?
Well, as soon as...
Is logic correct thinking about the world?
Oh, that's... as soon as a distinction evolves out of potential, you've got the foundation of logic.
Is logic correct thinking about the world?
Well, we created the formalization of logic based on our experience
That's
with.
not it. Okay.
Let me explain
Are
to
you
you what
having trouble? Are you having trouble hearing? I'll repeat my question. Is logic correct thinking about the world?
logic allows us to have deductive thinking about the world.
Yeah, sir. Again, are you having trouble hearing me?
Oh, I don't know what you mean by correct.
Okay. Yeah.
Is
Okay.
it reflected?
Bye. Bye. Sorry.
What the hell? Logic is reflected in nature.
Bye. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Sorry, English is not your first language. He doesn't know what the word correct means.
Yeah. Well, we had three people. So they tried that old canard of oh, if God knows what you're gonna do in the future, then God causes your choice. And I said, well, do you know the sun's gonna rise tomorrow? And they told me they three atheists yesterday told me they didn't know the sun's gonna rise tomorrow. I mean, this is the type.
Just tell them that this is an error in modal logic.
I
Okay.
did.
I'm serious. Okay.
No, I
So
did. I said it's an
William Lane
error.
Craig has responded this way. Okay. So
I did say that.
there's the necessity of the consequence versus the necessity of the consequent.
I
Okay.
told them exactly that, Darth. Yeah, I said
Yeah.
it's an error in S5 modal logic.
It's an error in modal logic that something will happen doesn't mean that it will be necessarily caused to happen.
For example, like if it rains, then necessarily the ground is wet. But if the ground is wet, it doesn't mean it rained because there could be other things. So it's like the necessity of the consequent versus the necessity.
Well, the necessity of the consequence is that let me just give me a second. The necessity of the
like
so the consequence of something that comes to pass, the necessity of the consequent. But the necessity of the consequence is that what comes to pass necessarily will happen. Not that it will, not just that it will happen. Necessarily, it will happen. Okay.
mm,
So these people are making a basic error in modal logic. William Lane Craig, who has two earned PhDs, one in theology, one in philosophy, pointed this out to an atheist. That when they say, "If God knows what I will choose to do," when they say, "When God knows, we know what we will choose to do." Therefore, we don't have a choice. This is an error in modal logic.
I mean, isn't that a good way to explain it? Is to say like just we know the sun's gonna rise in the east.
No, I personally wouldn't. I wouldn't use that. Okay. What you're doing is you're making a prediction based upon past consistency. Okay.
Right.
So God simply innately knows the truth value of all propositions, including future tense propositions. Okay. So God knowing what I will eat for lunch tomorrow doesn't cause me to eat what I chose. Okay.
It just doesn't follow that because you know something that therefore you cause it to happen.
Well, they're not. Look, they're not. I don't want to say sophisticated, but they just don't understand that it's an error in modal
So
logic.
you
And
would
when
say
you point this out to them, they just don't care.
you would say it's invalid to say I know the sun's gonna rise tomorrow because it's only like a probabilistic. Don't you think that's like
Well, well, do you have a justificatory path? Well, yeah, we have God's revelation of himself that he's going to keep things regular until
right?
judgment day and he destroys the earth.
Right. So I can say as a Christian, I know the sun's gonna rise tomorrow,
Yeah.
and I've been justified. So my knowledge that the sun's gonna rise tomorrow doesn't mean I'm causing the sun to rise tomorrow. I suppose there's like a slight category difference in that I'm not ultimate, but I think it doesn't. It's still like the point is that just because I know something doesn't mean I'm causing it, and that's just going to follow for God as well. I would think. So I don't know. They keep bringing this up. They want to say God causes.
Look. Somebody who has a greater degree of sophistication in philosophy and metaphysics knows the difference between the necessity of the consequent versus the necessity of the consequence. And this isn't just philosopho speak mumbo jumbo. This is a legitimate dissection of necessity. Okay. And they're just making an error in modal logic. We don't have to understand how God can know future tense propositions wherein we have a freedom to choose otherwise. Just besides the point. Another thing you want to keep in mind is that they typically are operating almost always off of the perceptual model of foreknowledge, that God looks into the future. Right? But the future is an abstraction. Okay, the future doesn't actually exist.
So you're like a
Okay.
presentist, like Mullins was talking about in the paper.
Yeah.
Would you be? Would you be a theory of time then too?
Me?
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Presentism is a theory of time, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Only the present moment exists. The past once exists, but it went out of existence, and the future doesn't exist.
Okay. Would they have sort of an existence in an abstract way in the mind of God or something like that?
Well, the future exists only in the sense of an abstraction.
Right.
The future doesn't concretely exist.
What about the past?
Because of it. Well, the past does not concretely exist now.
Uh-huh.
The past was once the present that did exist, but it faded out of existence, and we call the present that fades out, we call that the past.
So would the past be an abstraction of the mind of God?
Yeah, it's an abstraction for us too.
Okay.
See, as opposed to the B theory of time, where all moments of time actually equally exist, the
Right.
past, the present, and the future.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
and then the idea of temporal becoming would then be an illusion.
Time is so weird.
Yeah.
I got banned this morning for hate speech, by the way, so that was fun. But I appealed it and like instantly got it back. So that's why I'm
That's good. That's good.
So I'm guessing it must have been people false flagging it or something.
Yeah, of course, that's what they do. Welcome, Fisher.
Hi, how you gentlemen doing? Did I hear that right when you said the past no longer exists because it's faded?
You're too close to your microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Your mic.
Did I hear that right though? The past no longer exists because it's faded?
Yes.
Dorothy, your
what about
mic's
the fact that those who don't learn from the past are doomed to repeat it?
Yeah, so what about it?
That's just like what a saying.
Well, the past definitely does exist. Look at the scars on yourself. They're all from past wounds.
Sir, listen. You don't really understand what you're talking about. The past only exists in conceptual form as an abstraction. Okay? The past does not exist as a concrete state. The past only exists in terms of a mental conceptualization or abstraction of what was formerly concrete. Okay? Are we clear?
I hear what you're saying. Do I agree with it? Not necessarily. I understand your point.
Well, then what would be your rebuttal?
Broken bones mend, yes, but they were still broken.
Have you been drinking this morning?
No, I haven't. Is that your answer to everything? You accuse as soon as they say something that makes a remote amount of sense, you accuse somebody that's drinking. Brother, I just figured you were better than that. I'm sorry for my misjudgment of you.
I asked the question when somebody exhibits being obtuse and they're slurring their speech. Okay, so when you exhibit kind of lack of mental acuity and low informationalism, and you're slurring your speech, that would lead me to believe you've been consuming alcohol or other things.
Oh, this guy Cartesian wants to talk to you. He's like a genius atheist philosopher.
No, he's a troll.
Yeah.
He's trolled on many instances. He can go,
I know he's
he
a
can go,
troll.
he can go pound. Oh, it's Arctesian. Oh yeah, he can come up. I thought you meant somebody else.
No, this is
There's somebody else by the name of Cartesian
this
that's
is
a
that.
different name.
No, it's the same person.
It is. Oh well, your history because do you want to acknowledge to the audience that you have previously on multiple occasions specifically joined streams in order to troll me?
Is that the only way you'll talk to me?
I said to you, are you willing to be honest to admit that you have done this purposely?
Oh, if that'll get you to talk to me.
Okay, so now you're not willing to be honest. Goodbye. You're done. Okay, you see what dishonest pieces of garbage
They always
they
have
are.
there's always a caveat when they answer the question.
Yeah. No, he has joined multiple streams simply to be a human monkey wrench thrown into the gears. Right. This is what they do. Right. And yeah, you're not coming up. You're done. Okay.
Everything that has to be like a stipulation or condition to answer. Or
But
on this condition, I'll answer.
you know that bald atheist with the beard. He goes under the name Ice Cream or something like that, and he gets a lot of views. Well, he acknowledged that I showed up in the chat, and he said he refused. He's going to talk to me, and he referred to me as a twat. Right, and then he then proceeded to make a completely absurd caricature, straw man representation of my view of biblical presuppositionalism.
Oh man, T Jump's new video, or Tom Rabbit put out a video on T Jump. It's pretty weird.
What is it? What do you mean it's weird?
So T Jump on his like Facebook and his YouTube put out this message that he was looking to he's depressed and he's looking for a woman who's like between the ages of 18 and 24 to unlock his feelings. And posted the images of like his type, and so they're making Tom Rabbit's making a big deal of how like
can you imagine a female who might want to respond to that? Oh my gosh.
Tom, and then so they're giving him a bunch of crap for this and calling him like creepy, which fair enough. But I'm like, wait a second, where's your video about Jack? Like how are you attacking Tom for saying these things, but where's the video about Jack? That'll never come.
No, because he's a cohort with Jack being a pervert and a pseudo philosopher. They're both sophists.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I thought,
yeah. Why don't you do a video on all the creepy and crazy behavior that Jack? How about all the times where Jack loses his mind and curses people out? Why don't you do a video on that? Oh, that's right, because Jack is his fellow henchman.
Assaulting the old lady in the movie theater where he is proud of it and all this stuff.
It's even worse than that. The other videos. So
I mean, none of those people. I mean, they're casting stones from a glass house. We all know this, so it's just funny.
You see, Jack has always lied about why he followed, stalked, and harassed me because he says I'm a bully. Well, that's not why he's doing it. Okay, because when we started on Pal Talk, and he started his usual abusive behavior, I started posting regularly the link to the video that you mentioned, and I posted it over and over and over again, and Jack was royally pissed, and so he had a vendetta to get even. So he decided to let everyone know the weirdo that he is and to gauge in internet stalking.
Mm.
Okay.
Why does he get mad? I mean, he publicly put that out there. He's like proud of it, so it's weird. I don't know.
Look, when you get on the internet, you come across, you meet, and you observe a wide variety of people that have mental problems.
Yeah.
Okay. And many of the atheists that I have seen, I've encountered, they have certain mental issues to one degree or another. They all don't have them in the same degree, but they have these mental issues from one
Yeah.
degree or another.
Unfortunately, we have a lot of Christians like that too. But
Well, there are some. I refer to them as professing Christians.
yeah.
Well, I'm not trying to be funny. I'm
Like
serious.
we have our Mr. Batman, for example.
Well, yeah, um, yeah. So um, I'm in my early 60s, and I never realized the amount of really mentally twisted and warped people that are out there. But the thing is, one thing about human beings is those people who deviate from correct thinking, meaning God's way of thinking, they're so accustomed to their thinking that they just don't realize that their thinking is warped and twisted.
It really confirms what Paul says about when we turn from God, it corrupts our thinking and we become
Yeah,
twisted degenerates, basically.
yeah. Like in Proverbs, it says, "There is a way that seems right unto a young man, but the end thereof are the ways of death." And atheists just, this is why when you confront them with very specific and clear philosophical, metaphysical questions derived from a biblical perspective, they're blindsided because there cannot be any legitimate answer because it's just a figment of their imagination. So what they have to do is they just have to bloviate.
Yeah, that's what I got into it. A guy brought up the Barry Stroud criticism this morning, and I'm like, for one, he's like, I know how to specifically address that because I read it. It's in Josh Pillow's book.
Yep, that's correct.
He for one, Stroud's attacking a guy named P.F. Strawson, who's making a modest transcendental argument. So this is like different category of transcendental arguments from like Van Til's making a performative transcendental
Yeah.
argument.
And it has to do with the ultimate nature of reality. It's ontology.
So it's like really like a devious thing. What they're doing is they're taking a criticism for a different type of transcendental argument and trying to apply it to Van Til was never meant to be a
Right.
criticism of Van
Well,
Til.
they in the past, several years ago, the atheists on Discord would quote literally. See, it's so funny. They accuse me of quote mining, which I don't do. They literally would quote mine William Lane Craig. Although William Lane Craig has been outspoken in his criticism of biblical presuppositionalism, his written works pale in comparison. All right,
Yeah.
he's way more modest in terms of his criticism that he's written down.
But anyways, I called this guy out and he was wrong, and I sent him the Adrian and Bart the paper on performative transcendental arguments to like show,
Mhm.
and he just goes, "Oh, what a funny paper." I mean, this is the response I get. It's like
Okay, so it's a complete anti-intellectual
exactly,
just dismissal, and so when somebody does that, they're just unworthy of speaking
yeah,
to.
exactly. That's
Welcome,
what I told him.
yeah, welcome, Edward. What would you like to say?
Morning, guys. Hey, I'm learning about the top-down approach for apologetics, and I think you guys do a good job. I just had a question in regards to the relationship of objective truth and objective morality, which the morality thing seems to be thrown around on these atheist lives, like, oh, subjective, but
Okay, well,
just
your first question is free. Any question after that is going to be $2.25, unless you're a member of the Precept Mars International Fan Club International. Are
sign me
you
up.
are
Sign
you
me
a
up.
member? Are you a member?
Send me the link.
Okay. So that way you're gonna get a significant discount, and because it's December, you'll get 75% off
Yeah.
the all subsequent questions after the first one.
I should pay you guys because it is very entertaining to listen to you
Well,
guys talk to.
I don't want to be accused by the atheist of not informing somebody of the charges that they might be responsible for after their first question.
Yeah. I love Mars when he says things like, "You're so emotional." Oh
Yeah,
man.
some of his criticisms, I just sit there and I'm listening and I get a big smile on face and just going, "Oh, I love it." Like what
Yeah.
he says, he goes, "You process information more slowly than normal people, don't you?"
Yeah. Yeah. You need a soundboard that you can just plug. Like I think I said that before. It's like to Whitney Houston song. You get so emotional, baby. Right? I mean,
You
it's
know,
just
the one thing about the censorship, it makes us be sort of creative and more colorful in how we express ourselves, doesn't it?
right. Right.
Well, isn't it ironic that a woman of immense singing talent, um, who made famous the song "The Greatest Love of All Is Learning to Love Yourself," which is actually a satanic anthem, drowned herself to death.
Yeah.
Okay, because of she loved herself so much, she, you know, decided to jeopardize her life by doing, substances.
Yeah. No, I blame
Yeah.
Rob. I blame Bobby Brown too. So that guy's
Oh,
let it.
definitely. Yeah, he's definitely culpable, but so is she.
Yep. Yeah. Sad. The what fallacy of arrival, right? To get to that point of
Well,
that.
this is common among certain performing celebrities where they start using substances to both remain alert and also to sleep. And
Yeah.
it becomes a vicious cycle. And there's a lot of performing celebrities. When I say that, I mean people who sing and things like that, and they go from concert to things like that. I mean, take a look at Judy Garland. She
Yep.
died at a very young age from alcohol and drugs. And it's very common in people who are in the non-acting performances.
It goes to show you that you can have all the money and fame in the world and you're still not happy because you need that more.
I think that when they are treated like a god in parentheses, with accolades and I can see how that would happen. You have thousands of people cheering you, singing your songs with you. You're up there. I think that we cannot bear that burden for too long, and then it will break somebody. So
Sometimes I wonder. I don't know how I handle all that adulation.
yeah, you found the secret, Darth. I think.
It's not easy, my
Thanks,
friend.
Miranda.
Yeah. Yeah, you should write a book for these these up and coming rock
Well,
stars.
it's funny. It's funny that you should mention it. For those people my first book will be coming out in late January. And if you contact me ahead of time, I will be giving out some free pre-publication copies. The book is called "Humility and How I Achieved It."
Yeah, humble and
Yeah.
that could be the you could have a sequel to that book, humble and proud of it, right?
Yes, and I'm very fortunate that Donald Trump has agreed to write the foreword.
Oh boy, yeah. So I don't know if you remember my question in regards to objective truth and objective morality. The relationship between can the believer say there's objective morality in like an instance of a certain moral, right? Because I think every time you
Of
cite
course, of course, of course we
something,
can. Yeah.
they'll say, oh well, even smurdering is depending on circumstances, blah blah blah. But I've always come back
Well,
to what I
none
think
of these. Yeah.
is being
Go ahead.
truthful. Lying itself, if nothing is, if no one is honest, society collapses, right?
Well, the proof that they do believe that there is some objective morality is because atheists, without exception, are constantly moralizing. Now, if their moralizing were merely relativistic notions of a projection of what they like, it would be kind of stupid that they beat the tom-toms that they like this and they don't like that. But that's not what they're invoking. They're constantly moralizing. So this is a dead giveaway that they do believe in some semblance of objective morality, but they don't want to come out and admit it.
Well, and saying that morality is subjective, that's a self-defeating position, I think, because of there's a reciprocal relationship between truth and value.
It's a universal, unqualified declaration. How do they know that?
Well, that's actually a good point too. Yeah.
So, like, that statement itself is objective. They would have to concede that, like, even to make that statement.
When we talk about morals,
they constantly say there is no objective morality, right? Now, or they'll say morality is subjective. This is a universal declaration. How were they able to determine that? And you see, they do this because they're not sufficiently challenged by other people. Atheists are constantly saying the stupidest crap on the internet, on TikTok and YouTube, because they're not sufficiently challenged by people who can pull the rug out from under them. They just say the stupidest crap. Like when they say there's no evidence for God. Say, okay, good. Justify that statement.
Ed, do you have maybe like a final question? Because there's someone else requested. I want to give like people at this.
Nope, that's it. I'm good. I like to chew on it. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Please become a member of the Precept Mars International Fan Club.
I will do the search on that. And
not the North American unit, the international unit.
You guys have a good one.
You too.
You too. People always get confused on that, Darth. With they sign up for the North American, but I'm the international.
Well, that's because they're paying a smaller yearly fee, and I think they're just
you sound confused as to why people are atheist.
Am I confused? Well, having dealt with several thousand atheists that I've personally interacted with over 14 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't think I'm confused in the least as to how they think.
So you can see where they're coming from.
Yeah, I believe so.
If someone has no empirical evidence to suggest that something exists, you can see as to why they may think that it doesn't exist.
Yeah, I missed part of that. Can you start at the beginning?
If someone has no empirical evidence to convince them that something exists, you can see as to why they would believe that it might not exist.
Is there a justification that they don't have empirical evidence for God?
No, forget about justification.
Hold on a second. Let's have a conversation here. Okay. So when the atheist says there's no empirical evidence for God, is that just a claim?
Well, it's an observation.
No, sir. You're not answering the question, which is typical what atheists do.
That was my answer.
When the atheist says there's no objective for evidence, yeah, I know it's your answer, but it's not an answer to the question that I asked, which is typical what atheists do.
No, I'm not an atheist, by the way. But
okay, what are you?
Theist, I guess. I don't even fucking know.
You're a theist, but you don't know.
Agnostic, yeah, I guess, but I lean.
Yeah, dude, you're unworthy of being spoken to because you're a very confused person.
So because I'm honest and I don't say that I know 100% that God exists.
Ched, how old?
So I'm confused because I'm honest.
Ched, how old are you?
Why is that relevant?
Ched, how old are you?
Why is that relevant?
Ched, how old are you?
23.
Okay, you're a very confused young man because you just contradicted yourself. You
I'm just honest, 1 minute. I'm just honest.
You're also rude, interrupting me while I'm speaking.
Yeah, but you're calling me confused because I'm just being
honest. Yeah. Mommy and Daddy didn't teach you manners. Bye, Chad. 23 years old. 1 minute he says he's a theist, and the next minute he says he's an agnostic, which is a contradiction in terms.
It's honest to cheat when you keep changing your when you keep changing your position in the
Yeah,
and that's what
yeah,
honesty. Don't you get it?
yeah.
Because he said
Look,
he's
look,
honest.
look. Maybe he wasn't just being rude, and his mommy and daddy didn't do a good job. Maybe he's just recovering from a severe flu. Who knows? So. Welcome, Johnny. Do you accept God as your creator?
Hi, Darth. Yes, I do accept God as my creator.
Yes. What would you like to say, Johnny?
Oh, yeah. I guess I'm not sure exactly. I'm relatively new to TikTok and debates in general. However, I was
Okay. Well, okay. Since you're new, I need to
yeah.
give you a good piece of advice that newbies like you aren't aware.
Yes, sir.
When you are perusing TikTok
Hmm.
more than 10 minutes every day, you do need to take a very hot shower to clean yourself of the filth and the vileness and just mental weirdness that's on TikTok.
I can agree to that completely.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately,
No, it's very. There's a lot of toxic chat groups that I've run into in just a few hours.
yeah. I mean, many of the skeptic streamers on TikTok that I have been observing since I've been on this past year
Mhm.
make the Three Stooges look like they're all PhDs.
Yeah, yeah, I do agree. There was
And that's
one.
no insult out to you Three Stooges fans out there. Certainly, Mo.
Yeah, I don't understand how there was one chat group that it was ran by I'm assuming they're quite clearly atheists. Man, they were very oh I was only able to talk for like not even a minute. And
One of several of their tactics is to be a motor mouth and constantly nuh-uh, nuh-uh, nuh-uh.
yeah,
Very few of them know how to have a mature, intelligent conversation and even debate.
right, that's what I was looking for, and there was none of that available. They didn't make it available at all.
Darth, Darth, it's so funny you say that because that's all you do. And if someone disagrees with you, you call them children.
Um, no, I don't call people
Yes.
children when they Please do not be a child and interrupt me while I'm responding to your accusation. Okay, so when people come onto my stream, if they maturely and intelligently disagree, like yesterday, and you're giggling on the microphone like a 14-year-old who didn't
Yeah,
take his
because you're
Ritalin.
embarrassing. Because
Okay,
you're
yeah.
embarrassing.
Can I ask you a question? Do you have a speech impediment?
Sure. Why do you ask?
Because it sounds that way.
So, Darth, you say you
No,
follow
I asked.
Jesus,
I
yet
asked
you're
you a
no,
question. Okay,
Darth.
okay, yeah. If you're going to act like a
Claim to
child,
follow
if you,
Jesus, yet you're
if you're
in, yet you're
if you're going to act like a
insulting,
child, I'm going. Okay, you're done.
going to
You're
insult
done.
someone's perceived disability.
You're done. You're done.
Hmm. Yeah, that was an interesting example of what we were just discussing.
No, I was just sincerely asking because if you truly do have a disability of a speech impediment, I wouldn't want to make fun of the way that you speak.
Yeah,
So,
I
so
was
I didn't want to make fun of him for the
right,
way he speaks.
right.
If he truly has a speech impediment, but if he doesn't have a speech impediment, I was just curious as to why, if he's a grown man, he talks the way he does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find that more the intent of the question.
Yeah, yeah.
I think he
And he says
misinterpreted.
the guy's a bald faced liar, and he said, "I call anyone I disagree with a child." Well, there were several people that I dialogued and debated with yesterday who I spoke at length with. One a Muslim and one an atheist, and we disagreed at length. And I complimented both of them on their impeccable behavior.
Mm.
So when this person who sounded like he had some speech problem um, said that I call anyone who disagrees with me a child, he's just outright lying. and engaging in slander and defamation.
Mhm.
When people come up here and they're evasive, they're deceptive, they dodge, and they're machine gun talking and rude and interruptive, when people behave that way, I call them acting like teenagers.
Yeah, it's
But and you see, I think it's acting like a child to falsely accuse somebody when I'm acting like an adult, and many of my interlocutors don't act like an adult. So,
yeah.
but then again, this is coming from a super genius who sounds like he has some type of speech impediment.
I would say self-proclaimed genius.
Yeah, yeah, like Wile E. Coyote from the Looney Tunes.
Yeah, very Looney Tune. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to insult or berate
Yeah.
the person, but the
Yeah.
behavior exhibited disrespect.
So he got removed because he was acting worse. There are children typically do not behave this way.
Yeah, I would say
Okay.
adolescents more so.
Yeah, and sometimes it's an insult to say that they're teenagers trapped in adult bodies, because many teenagers, and unless they're born out of wedlock and don't know who their daddy was, they have some parental training and discipline to conduct themselves.
Yeah, I see adolescents tend, and at least in today's American society, more so to be of that nature. Very high disregard for.
So rather than attempt to make a mature criticism of me that I might disagree with, he decided to go to the low road and be sleazy and make this ridiculous claim that anyone who disagrees with me I call a child. I mean, not even some of my worst atheist enemies believe that stupidity. Okay.
Yeah, it's a direct ad hominem, I believe.
Well, I've seen Darth, if people are mature or a little bit humble, he'll work with them. He's pretty patient. So,
yeah, and I am patient, but what I won't put up with is people being blatantly evasive and deceptive and disruptive. If I'm a moderator, they're going to have to show, a modicum of deference to me being a moderator. Okay.
Yeah.
When people accuse me of interrupting, yeah, I do interrupt when somebody is answering a question and they're just monologuing and what they're saying is not zeroed in on the question that I asked.
They don't
They're
understand.
they're talking around the question I ask.
And within a debate, there's a section where you ask questions of your opponent, and the debater is supposed to force a lot of times their opponent will try to dodge, prevaricate the question, evade. And so you're supposed to press on them and make them answer your question. This is what the debater is supposed to do. And people give Darth a hard time for that, but that's literally what you're trained to do if you go to debate class.
Yeah, and if I don't do that, then they will obfuscate, prevaricate, and rabbit trail as the day is long. It's that simple. Welcome, Amber. What would you like to say?
Hello. How is everybody today?
I do be fine.
Darth, I actually had some questions for you, if you don't mind me asking.
Not at all.
Okay, so what? I'm just kind of curious now. Just as a preface, I am an atheist, but I have been kind of listening to your when you do your lives.
Did you say you're an atheist?
I am.
Okay. Are you the kind of atheist that denies God's existence?
the kind that denies, not denies, just lacks belief.
Oh, okay. So is there a word in the English language that is used pervasively to designate those who deny God?
I'm not sure. I don't know if the word.
So there's no word comes to mind, a one-word label for those who deny God's existence. So the word atheist doesn't ring a bell?
Well, yeah, but I mean, I know there's people that kind of who are atheists will
So as
make
an
it like a
atheist,
definitive.
so as an atheist,
Mhm.
you lack belief in God, but you're not denying God. Is that correct?
Oh, okay. So you're trying to say that I'm more like agnostic?
No, I'm just asking you, since you self-identify as an atheist, is that
Mm.
characterized by merely having an absence of belief in God without the denial of God?
Hmm. I guess, honestly, I'm not sure how to answer your question.
Well, either you're cognizant that you deny the existence of God or you don't. So which is it?
Mm, I wouldn't say I would rule it out.
Okay, so then you're not making any judgment as to the existence or non existence of God then, is that correct?
Right.
So you're not making a judgment. So why is it that virtually all of the reference works, dictionaries, encyclopedias, and philosophical reference works, virtually all define atheism as making a judgment that God doesn't exist? Why do you think they do that?
Um, well, I've seen more than one definition, and I think that's where some atheists kind
No,
of, um,
I'm talking about if you actually look it up. I've actually done this.
mhm.
I've gone through
Well,
as many
but,
reference works as I can, and
mhm,
there's a standard representation. Okay,
mhm,
and I'm not saying that there aren't non-standard definitions, but the standard representation in reference works is that an
mhm,
atheist is somebody who disbelieves or denies that there is a creator or supreme being.
mhm. But I've
But
also
you're
seen
at
definitions that just say that it's either a
okay,
lack of
okay,
belief in gods or gods.
okay. So you lack belief, but you don't deny God. So okay, so how would that make you different from somebody who, like an agnostic, claims to suspend judgment? How would that be any different?
It probably wouldn't.
Okay,
I would
all right. Go
probably
ahead.
fall more and
All
more
right,
into the agnostic, I guess. I
okay.
kind of have, to be honest, I have kind of wavered between, and I know there's kind of controversy to call yourself an agnostic atheist, but I've kind of wavered between those two terms.
Yeah, so just for the audience sake, I'm not quite agreeing with a number of things that Amber is saying, but Amber is doing her best to conduct herself intelligently and maturely, and I have yet once to call her a child. So I guess I falsified that previous guest. Anyway, go ahead, Amber. What are your
So,
questions?
I was actually just kind of curious with your the discussions that you have. What is your perception of atheism? Do you feel like it's a detriment to humanity or society to disbelieve in God?
I do.
I think it's a chosen state of irrationality. The
Okay.
denial of God cannot be rationally grounded, although they attempt to do so with slogans and cliches that, upon examination, don't hold up. So, the
Okay.
denial of God, in my view, and as well from Christians, is that atheism is one form of irrationality.
Yeah, but would you say
Okay.
like in a pragmatic sense, is it like bad for the world or something?
Is it bad? Well, given in the 20th century that those who were atheists who held absolute power wiped out more human beings in the history based upon that one ideological outlook, yeah, I would think it's kind of bad.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay.
That's a huge good point.
When you bring up names like atheist Stalin, Hitler, Mao Zedong, Pol Pot, and others who uh, publicly and strongly identified as an atheist, that we have good examples about how so-called atheists in the 20th century who wielded absolute power, we see how they dealt with humanity by unaliving unimaginable numbers of millions of people.
Darth, I have a question. Does North Korea would they consider themselves atheists
Oh yeah, the North Korean
currently?
leadership
Yeah, currently.
as to the population.
Hmm.
I wouldn't say that the North Koreans as a population are atheist.
But the leaders.
Well, yeah, I mean there might be pockets of it.
Okay. Yeah.
But couldn't you say the same thing for the numerous wars over history that have been conducted in the name of religion?
Well, that would be a historical fallacy because of all the wars that have occurred. If you actually investigate it, the wars are predominantly geopolitical, not merely and only religion.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
they don't attack other countries merely for the purposes of converting them, unless of
Well,
course you
in
want to
most
talk
cases,
about yeah, in
Islam.
most cases, yeah, yeah. I was just going to say that unless you want to take the exception where the Islamic forces were moving northward and had not the forces of the Crusade pushed them back, we'd all be speaking Arabic now.
And more than that, yeah, they went into Africa too. They sent armies into
Yeah.
Africa.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
But most wars are geopolitical.
yeah, that's true. That's true. So I was just curious, kind of like what motivated you to kind of go into this forum of, I guess, debates or discussions?
Because I became a Christian 40 years ago,
Hmm.
and I've always been whenever there's a controversy in the world, I've always wanted to know what the truth is, no matter where it lies. And so, if there's a divergence of conflicting views, obviously both sides or multiple sides cannot be correct. And once I became a Christian, I realized that the Christian worldview was the only true and rational worldview. And so I like to take a stand in defending the truth of the Christian worldview against all opposition,
Okay,
in
interesting.
the hopes that they'll accept the gospel of Jesus Christ. Do you know what the gospel is?
Well, I guess if you want to define it as, well, I have been, well, how do I want to word it? Um, I used to be a Christian, which I know some sects will say that's debatable. But I was a Christian for 7 years.
Okay, so the gospel, briefly, for those listening, is God created this world. Man is in a state of sinful rebellion against God. All men stand under the wrath of God as we speak, and it is only the common grace of God why we still remain alive. And God calls everyone to repent, meaning to abandon their false belief about themselves and God and their status, and turn to God, crying out to be saved from the judgment that they are now under and will receive on Judgment Day. And if we turn to Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, God will forgive us. So that's the main motivating feature. See, in the New Testament, Paul says in 2 Corinthians chapter 10, we are destroying all speculations and all lofty things and ideas that raises itself above the knowledge and the truth of God, bringing all thoughts into the captivity of Christ as Savior. So when I'm debating unbelievers and atheists, it is to show them the utter uh, irrationality of their position, and that they need to turn to God for salvation. Otherwise, when they pass away, they're going to meet their eternal doom.
Okay. Well, while we have opposing views, I mainly came up not necessarily to debate you because honestly,
That's
I
fine. If you
don't.
want to disagree with me, that's okay.
Because I mean, I'm not super. I know a lot of your arguments are philosophical. I only understand the basics, and it's been a long time since I've read the Bible too, so I'm not super up to speed. But
So,
I kind of like to
yeah.
get to know people, kind of understand their motivations and where they're coming from in these discussions. Not to like pry, but just to kind of more understand people.
Um,
So,
so, do you think that your unbelief is rational?
um, It could be irrational, but I think for me, the way I perceive my life, um, I find that I'm not necessarily lacking anything that religion or God could, or a God could necessarily fill.
Well, what in your model of reality connects the dots to everything, as
I
opposed to
mean, I
being
guess
in
I
a
have,
world of chance?
um, I think for me, I'm okay not knowing, and the possibility of the world just happening by chance.
Do
I
you
guess
think
maybe because of,
do you think you're in a chance world?
possibly.
Okay, so when your husband comes home and he has perfume on his collar and lipstick on a collar, and he just tells you that, I don't know how that got there. It just, it just happened by chance. You gonna accept that?
Well, that's not going to be super analogous because there's going to be some evidence
Oh,
there that's going to say a contrary.
but you see, you're bringing that up. It wouldn't be valid because you're possibly in a chance world, and in a chance world, anything can happen. So when you bring up evidence, evidence isn't necessarily evidence in a chance world. You see, you can
But it
have
can raise a probability.
you can't have probabilities in a chance world. So if you're possibly in a
Mm,
chance world, there can't be evidence for things.
Hmm. I'll have to do some
And
more
and, and,
research
and
on that
by
and get
ch-
back
and
with
by
you.
chance and by chance, I'm not talking about where one meteor deflects off of another, and then it's pulled into the gravitational pull of the Earth, and then because of various aerodynamic forces and wind currents, it lands on the roof of a barn in Nebraska. Okay, we would call that chance, but all that's simply referring to are various intersecting deterministic events producing a novel effect. But that's not the kind of chance we're talking about. I'm talking
Hmm.
about you're in a world where God is not ultimate as the creator, and the world is operating according to his plan, and we're in a world where anything can happen. So, in a world where anything can happen without God, there can't be evidence for things.
Hmm. Okay. Let me do some research on that because I'm not a debater.
Well,
Um, so
basically, like
let me get back with you on that, Darth.
when he's talking about like the lipstick and the perfume, you're drawing connections in the world. You're saying this perfume and this lipstick is going to connect
Mhm.
to this like person my husband was with that's more than likely female. I mean, it could be a guy, I guess, um but you're going to draw this like connection, and so that's what we're sort of saying, that the to have connections, God is the connecting thing.
Well, wait a minute. Isn't that kind of transphobic to say that the lipstick and the perfume
Right,
can
yeah, I
only
shouldn't have said
be?
that.
I mean, that's transphobia.
I don't want to misgender a hypothetical person. I could hurt their
Yeah,
hypothetical
I
feelings.
think you're being anti-LGBT alphabet soup.
Right,
Come
I
on,
better quit while
bros.
I'm
Come
ahead.
on, man. Gotta be PC, bro.
Spread the love. Precept. Come on.
So people decline to acknowledge God, and they typically do so because they'll say that there's a lack of evidence. Would that be your position?
I know a lot of people come up and say like, if there's a lack of empirical evidence. I don't necessarily have to hold to that standard. Um, so it's kind of hard to describe. I
What
guess.
what is keeping you from acknowledging that the world exemplifies ultimate design and intentionality?
Hmm.
You see, either you're going to conclude that the world is the product of ultimate design and intentionality or
Mhm.
not, and your only
Mhm.
alternative would be a chance world. Now, you might want to opt for determinism, right? But if
Mhm.
determinism is true, you couldn't know it. Okay,
Mm.
and determinism would destroy all reason. Okay, nor could you argue for determinism if determinism is true. So all you're going to be left with is either the world exemplifies ultimate design and intentionality by the mind and purpose of God, and therefore, because the world reflects God, because God purposed it, now things have actuality, meaning, and intelligibility because they originate in the mind, purpose, and plan of God, and then it reflects back on God. If that's rejected, all you're going to be left with is in a chance world. So you're either going to have to embrace a chance world or say, I'm not in a chance world, I'm in a world of determinism. Then you're going to have to explain how you could possibly know anything in determinism. Because if you and I both categorically disagree about being in a deterministic world, means that both of us were caused by the determinism to think and reason the way they do, and we couldn't have reasoned otherwise. So you see, the alternative to acknowledging that the world exemplifies ultimate design and intentionality by the mind and plan of God is just simply an absurd model of reality, which destroys reason. So just the fact that you consider yourself to be in possession of a certain degree of rationality, right? Of course you do. So either your rationality is begotten or gifted by the ground of all being that is characteristically of being a rational entity, and then that mind makes you to be like him, or your rationality allegedly just emerges eventually, given enough time, out of what is characteristically the not rational. So the not rational becomes the rational. How does that make sense?
I can't say that I fully agree with you on that, because even then, how will you know that it's the Christian God and not another God?
Well, when we look at the propositional property set of the God of the Bible that has been putatively revealed through the prophets, ultimately in Jesus Christ, and codified in the Bible, when we look at that propositional content, the attribute set of the triune God of the Bible is exclusive and indispensable for all actuality, truth, reason, and intelligibility. If that is not accepted, it will be a denial of that, and then you're going to have to explain what the nature of your world is and how it provides for the actuality of anything, truth, reason, and intelligibility. So God did something very wise. When he gave revelation of himself, he made it impossible for that revelation to be rationally denied. But in this world, he allows human beings to irrationally deny him as a temporal judgment upon them when they rebel. So people can irrationally deny God, but you can't rationally deny God. So the propositional content of the attribute set of the God of the Bible shows that it's exclusive and indispensable, and no other worldview has that property set. So oxygen and water are exclusive and indispensable for remaining alive. I don't think anyone would dispute that, okay? Unless, of course, they're crazy or maybe a registered Democrat. But so the God of the Bible, his revelation, when we look at it correctly, is self-authenticating in that God is revealing his property set, and that would account for why we have reason, truth, intelligibility. But the denial therein, it cannot be done. Okay, so it's a transcendental argument, and part of a robust transcendental argument is that the positive representation of that view that it cannot be rationally denied. It's called a performative transcendental argument. It's very similar to a reductio ad absurdum. Deny that God is and that he's revealed himself through creation, through the prophets, ultimately in Jesus Christ, and codified in the propositional content of the Bible, and you enter into what is called a reductio ad absurdum. In other words, deny this frame of reference, and anything you say hereafter is reduced to absurdity or self-contradiction. So when somebody says, oh, I don't accept the propositional content as being authoritative, true, and correct, and self-authenticating of the God who exists, then what they're doing is they're proclaiming that their adjudication about the nature of the Bible is authoritative, and that their reasoning would be autonomous and not needing to be in submission or in alignment with the mind of God and how he reveals it. So then the question is how do they account for making authoritative judgments of any kind in a world of chance? The answer is they can't. So the God of Christianity establishes his reality, his truth, in the propositional content. It's such that he possesses the only the attributes that we would need. So there can only be one worldview, right, that provides for actuality, truth, reason, and intelligibility. You can't have two worldviews that have equal but competing property sets for actuality, truth, reasoning, intelligibility. So if we have a worldview that comes along and it ticks off all the check boxes for the properties needed for actuality, truth, reason, and intelligibility, then that worldview establishes itself in a self-attesting manner due to the impossibility of any other presenting or competing worldview. So we know Christianity is true, not only because of its own positive internal content, but in addition to the impossibility, the rational impossibility of its denial.
Okay.
So typically what people do is they'll throw out other worldviews that are not their own, which is just a fallacy, because they don't want to submit to the only worldview that represents that it alone has the grounds of rationality. So for example, suppose you were debating with somebody who didn't agree with your worldview, and one of the central properties within the opposing worldview from yours, they were denying the uniformity of nature, right? And you were saying that in some way or some sense, the world is indicative of the uniformity of nature, and that it would be a necessary transcendental requirement for truth and reason. Okay, so you're giving a positive case for your model of reality, but then you're pointing out that the denial of that reduces their reasoning to absurdity. You couldn't reason in a world where the uniformity of nature was not true. Okay. Now you, I'm sure, accept that the world operates in some regular ways, along with some irregular ways, which would represent the uniformity of nature. So anybody who would oppose the positive representation of the uniformity of nature, right, and then tried to deny it, would result in a reductio ad absurdum. Well, the same thing happens with Christianity, right?
Okay.
We have the positive attributes of the God of the Bible. When people bring up like Islam is a very obvious bastardization of historical Christianity. The only people who can't see that are the Muslims themselves, because they don't want to see it. So when all people stand before Jesus Christ on Judgment Day, nobody's going to be without an excuse, right? So like when we have atheist people on social networks and on platforms like this saying, well, God knows what it would take for me to believe, and he hasn't given that yet. So obviously either your God doesn't exist or he doesn't want me to believe. But that's just adolescent balderdash, because implicit within that position is that the world is not sufficiently revelatory of ultimate design intentionality. But that's not something that they can argue for. It's just a non-defended assertion that the world is not evidence for God. So when I talk with atheists, they'll say, well, why don't you believe in God? 99 times out of 100, what do they say, Amber?
That there's no empirical evidence.
That's right. Now, have you ever heard an atheist justify that?
I think a lot of times when they'll
Have
use
you
like
ever heard an atheist justify that?
justify the empirical evidence
No.
as
Have
far
you ever heard an
as
atheist justify the claim there's no evidence for God?
I mean, other than really kind of disproving the Bible or dismissing
That
personal
would not be
experience.
defending it. They can attack religious literature all they want that wouldn't support that there's no evidence for God unless they had an argument that God doesn't exist and therefore God could not be responsible for any religious literature. The bottom line is atheists morning, noon, and night say, there's no evidence for God. And when you ask them to defend it, then they go, you're shifting the burden of proof. Sounds like the pot calling the kettle black. If atheists could defend there's no evidence for God, they would do so. But they don't. So all they're left with is the cliche, there's no evidence for God. So when I talk with atheists and they say, there's no evidence for God, I'll say, yeah, can you please explain how you determined the world is independent of God? And then you hear crickets.
Yeah, how can you disprove God?
You know.
So I guess I want to ask. So what is your kind of stance or perception of religion? Oh,
Ouch.
Feedback.
We're getting feedback.
ooh, that was rough. Of religions that came prior to Christianity. What do you think is the
Christianity did not begin 2,000 years ago. Christianity started in the early part of Genesis, where God said to Satan, who manipulated
okay.
the
I see
serpent,
what you're saying.
God said to Satan, who was manipulating the serpent, he said, the seed of the woman will crush your head, but you will bruise his heel. This was a clear foreshadowing that Satan would facilitate Jesus being crucified, but that God would crush his head in the sense that the crucifixion would bring about the resurrection, which would make Jesus Lord of all. Okay? In other words, Jesus was Lord of all in his ultimate eternal essence. But as being manifested in a man, when God raised him from the dead, Jesus, in terms of his humanity, became Lord of all. All authority had been handed over to him. So Christianity started thousands of years before 2,000 years ago. It's just that so the word Christianity comes from the word Christ, which means the anointed one, the Messiah. The teaching of the Messiah was taught long before the Messiah actually stepped on the stage. So it's a mistaken notion to say that Christianity started 2,000 years ago.
So you're saying, right? I see what you're saying. So even though
What
like
happened 2,000 years ago? What happened 2,000 years ago was God pulling back the curtain and revealing the Messiah.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I see where you're coming from. That you're not
Mhm.
looking at it like a chronological time frame, like a human chronological time frame.
If you
Gotcha.
want to talk about the word Christ, that started in 2,000 years ago. But that's just the Greek form of the Hebrew word Mashiach or Messiah, which long predated by thousands of years Jesus' advent.
Hmm. Okay. All right. Well,
See,
I don't.
one thing you want to keep in mind, one of the big factors in our modern era that has led people to skepticism and unbelief is not because the world doesn't sufficiently indicate ultimate design and intentionality. It does so unambiguously and overwhelmingly. It's because they have been brainwashed into a theory that purely mechanistic, materialistic occurrences can produce the complexities of life in evolution. Evolution is one of the biggest scams in human history. You want to know why? Look, I'll give you a quote from one of the world's greatest experts on evolution, Dr. Eugene Koonin. He is not a creationist. In his own highly technical book, Defending Evolution, he says in there that the idea of self-replicating systems, by that he means evolution, that it's virtually impossible for it to occur absent a multiverse. Okay? This is one of the world's greatest experts on evolution. He's not an intelligent design advocate. He's not a creationist. He is a staunch defender of evolution. And he says several times in his own highly technical book that self-replicating systems, meaning evolution, is virtually impossible to occur absent a multiverse. And then he goes on to speak of the glories of a multiverse. Okay?
Okay.
So if it's the case that evolution is virtually impossible to occur absent a multiverse, then me saying the theory of evolution is one of the biggest scams in human history is not far-fetched. The idea that random mutations can accrue, aided by selection processes, to build the genome of the animal kingdom, the entire kingdom as we know it today, is literally insane. So a rudimentary protein that has 200 amino acids would be the chance of random mutations accumulating to code for that protein would be 1 in 10 followed by 200 zeros. That's just for a protein. Okay? Then when you add the factor all the coding sequences for extremely other complicated proteins and the coding instructions that don't simply deal with proteins but other regulatory functions in embryological and biological development, you're talking about now for evolution to occur, it would be a 1 in 10 followed by tens of thousands of zeros representing the genome of the animal kingdom. So would you believe that something could happen that is of significance or functionality if it's a 1 in 10 chance followed by tens of thousands of zeros?
Interesting.
You
Well,
see,
to be honest,
when Darwin came up with the theory of evolution, he knew nothing of DNA. He knew nothing of the complex molecular machinery of cells. By the time the discovery of DNA occurred in 1952, and the discovery of the complex molecular machinery in the 20th century, by the time these things were just discovered, let alone studied, the theory of evolution was dogma throughout the scientific world. Now, do you know what the James Webb Space Telescope is?
I've heard of it.
Okay. Do you know what the Hubble is?
Yes.
Okay. The James Webb Space Telescope does not orbit the Earth like the Hubble. It's way farther out, and it can see to unimaginable distances that the Hubble could not see. Astronomers who reject the Christian worldview and who hold to a deep time and the Big Bang cosmology were just ecstatic that when it went online, they were going to be able to see the very early formation of the universe because allegedly it takes photons 14 billion years to travel that distance. So what you're going to see is you're going to see the very early stages of the beginning of the universe. Well, when the James Webb Space Telescope came online, that's not what they saw. They saw extremely complex and well-formed galaxies, which was completely contrary to their materialistic view. Oops.
I'm sorry.
So
Oh, I'm
Christianity is
sorry.
true. It proves itself whether or not somebody accepts it or is persuaded. And the non-acceptance and the denial thereof is irrational. And God just gives us this one lifetime. And if we decide to give him the middle finger in this lifetime, he's going to grant us what we're asking for. And when we pass from this life, we will stand before him on Judgment Day, and we will be separated from him forever. And if somebody wants to think that's a fairy tale, I said, good. Tell me what your worldview defeater for that is and how that's not a fairy tale.
Interesting. Do you think
Do you know
there's
that? Let me just say one more thing. There are people so desperate out there, they take Christianity so seriously that they even go so far as to say, Jesus never existed. I mean, this is how crazy people are, that they would deny that Jesus ever existed. I mean, that's how absurd people are. Anyway, go ahead.
now? I could concede that I think Jesus could have been a real person. Do you think there would ever be something that would, not that I'm trying to convince you in any way, do you ever think there could be something that could make you question your beliefs?
I'll give you a quick answer and then an explanation. No.
Okay.
Because the core nucleus of the Christian worldview is the property set of the God of Christianity. And that property set is the necessary precondition for reason, truth, and for notions of affirmation, denial, truth, and falsity. In other words, if the God, in a world where the God of the Bible is, we have the capacity by his plan to be able to appropriate things that are true, recognize that some things are false, and the capacity to reason as gifted from him. Deny that scenario, and there won't be any basis for reason, truth, or intelligibility. You know, the atheist streamers all the time go, prove God exists, prove me wrong. Well, the concept of right and wrong couldn't exist without the ground of all being having the property set of God.
Yeah.
So it's this. It's rationally impossible to be skeptical of the God of the Bible, or in generally God, because without God, there won't be any ultimate reference point that you could rely on to reject any state of affairs. Any rejection of a state of affairs in that scenario would be irrational. So it's irrational to doubt God's existence. You could have a fleeting irrational doubt of God, but you can't rationally doubt God. Why? It's because the property set of God himself is the ultimate precondition upon which doubting anything would make sense. If somebody says, I don't believe in God and I doubt that you could jump to the moon, say, good, explain to me what. Well, there are laws of nature. Well, where'd you get that from? What is it that imposes that there are laws of nature, and that if there are laws of nature, that they'll continue the next 10 minutes? So you see, being skeptical or doubting some states of affairs is only rationally possible if and only if the God of the Bible and his attribute set exists.
Interesting viewpoint. Well, unfortunately, Darth, I am going to continue to be an irrational atheist today. You haven't converted me today, but I was really wanting more to, because
But wait a minute, we're disagreeing. I didn't get to call you a child and browbeat you like all my critics say, right?
I didn't say that one.
Right? I didn't throw you off the panel because you disagreed.
Come on, Darth. You have a reputation, man. Come on, Darth.
Yeah, I know. I got a reputation to keep up.
Get
You
it.
gotta- do
No,
you
I wouldn't expect that I'm going to change your mind, but I guarantee you, in the next day, week, or month, you're going to be thinking about this, and you're going to go, "Yeah, I don't know how to refute what he said. That's very, very profound." It
we'll
takes
see.
look, it takes time for it to sink in.
Uh-oh. Oh, I'm sorry, I just got a text. I didn't mean hold on.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Well, I
Well,
am at work.
you know what? I now have proof for God because you see, you disagree with me, and according to my critics, anyone who disagrees with me, I call a child and a teenager, and that didn't happen. So that constitutes a miracle. So therefore, there's a God.
I know somebody said in the comments that I only said 3 words and said that's mainly because I was more kicker off for bloviating.
You're free to talk at length if you want, anytime.
Well, I was just more kind of curious. Like I said, I'm more because a lot of times with the conversations, it does turn into arguments, and I'm kind of more of
That's
I
because
like to
most people
understand.
don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Well, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about either, but I'd kind of like to
No,
understand
but
where people are coming
there's
from.
a difference between somebody like you who is not prideful. See, many of the people that we run into, they're prideful. Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of pride out there. I think this app is a breeding ground for that, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. If there was an intelligence test before you could stream, there would be very few streamers.
So, well, I am at work, so I probably need to jump off and go do something
Okay.
productive
All
for
right. Well, please.
society.
Oh, please come again.
Yeah, it was nice to meet you, Amber. She had really cool questions. I liked her inquisitiveness.
So, do we have any unbelievers who would like to explain why my defense of the existence of God and the Christian worldview, as I have given it so far, isn't valid? Do we have any intelligent uh, unbelievers? No, we don't.
Yeah, I wish I could have had these conversations when I was a teenager.
Welcome, CB. Do you accept God as your creator?
That's C8, by the way. Sorry.
Oh, I don't have my reading glasses on. C8. Okay. Do you accept God as your creator?
No, sir.
Can you tell me why?
It's all fiction. None of it's true.
Well, you're just repeating the same thing in different words. Can you tell me how you determine it's fiction?
Yeah, sure. Prayer doesn't work for me. The Bible was created by apostles that they say existed. I don't believe they did. Was never written by God.
Okay. Well,
So
so something only existed if and only if you believe in it.
correct. In my opinion,
Do you,
anyways, for
okay.
this.
Okay. Do you hold on? Do you realize that's how 3-year-olds think?
Well, you don't have to be insulting, sir. If I
No,
disagree with
that's
you,
not.
I
No,
disagree. That's
that's not an
definitely
insult.
insulting.
No. Listen.
100%.
No, it's not an
100%.
insult. I'll tell you
100%.
why. I'll
100%.
explain to you. I'll explain to you why it's not an insult and it's spot on accurate. Very young children believe that the only things that can and do exist are those things that they believe in, and if they don't believe in it, it doesn't exist. That's how 3-year-old. You mean to tell me 3-year-olds don't think that way?
You're allowed to have your opinion, but so am I, right?
That's a dodge to my question. Do 3-year-olds think that way?
You're getting a little bit heated right now. You need to
I'm not. I'm not heated.
bring it down.
I'm
Bring it
trying
down.
to.
You raised your voice
Okay.
a few times there.
Okay. Have a nice day. So now you decide to go to troll mode. Okay, that's right. Bye.
What are you talking?
Okay, so when I show him that I was not being insultive, and he cannot dispute that 3-year-olds think that way, to sit
Yeah,
there and say, "Well, the apostles didn't exist because I don't believe they existed."
right.
I mean, this is the way children think.
Right.
If you said, I don't believe they existed, okay, fine. You're just telling me what you believe. But if you say they don't exist because I don't believe they existed,
Right.
how
Things
does it
can.
follow? How does it follow because you believe something? How does that follow? Is there a solid foundation
Right.
for that belief? Because if there's not a solid foundation for your belief doesn't determine whether, excuse me, or not the apostles lived.
Right. Whether it's true. Belief does not necessitate truth.
Yeah. I mean, how
Um,
many times have we asked somebody, is that true? And they say, well, I believe it is. Okay, yeah, you believe it. Is your belief based upon some foundation?
Yeah.
The apostles don't exist. Well, you know what? Uh, I don't believe that atheism is true. Therefore, atheism isn't true because I don't believe it.
yeah.
What if what if he said, well, how is it that God exists? Does God exist because I believe God exists? And he would say that doesn't follow. That's right. And you believing that the apostles were not actual historic individual, it doesn't follow from that necessarily that they didn't exist.
Yeah.
I mean, do you see how irrational many of these unbelievers are? Even on the simplest of things. And when I point out that's how children, a 3-year-old thinks, that's an insult. No, that's an accurate representation. This is how 3-year-olds think.
3-year-olds
that was
are restricted to that. Yeah.
Yeah. How many times does a child of that young age cover up their eyes and you can't find me?
He was employing the same mentality. Yeah.
So actually, I wasn't being insultive. I was being spot on accurate.
That's correct. Yeah. It wasn't an
Okay.
insult.
There are certain ways that children think that is prototypical of the way children think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, how about this? C8. I believe you're wrong. Therefore, you're wrong because I believe you're wrong. Case closed, right? I'm using his logic.
Right. I did want to know how he came to believe what he believes as truth, or what.
Oh, but when they tell us that
Going
we're
and
believing, when they're telling us that as grown adults, when we advocate that God exists and He's real, and they say that's a fairy tale, and I go, "You're insulting me."
Yeah, that's
So they can sit there and going, "You're believing in a fairy tale." But if I say you're reasoning like a 3-year-old, you're insulting me.
I mean, they are children, and
What?
then if they children trapped in an adult's body, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just fragile snowflakes.
Yeah, Kamala Harris supporters, the usual,
Yeah. She blew. Look, she blew through not quite $1.5 billion.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
That's
I heard
incredible.
about that.
Okay, yeah.
And didn't win.
Blew away
And she lost. And she lost. She did. It wasn't that she lost. She lost in a landslide.
It was a landslide. Yeah.
In
Both
a political landslide.
She lost
Okay.
9%. That's crazy.
Yeah, because you're always going to have morons and people that are evil and are craven toward, the party of Satan, voting no matter what. I mean, look, the woman, Kamala Harris, anybody who listened to her for any length of time, if you have a brain in your head, would realize she was completely stupid. I'm not saying stupid because we disagree with the policies that she would evoke. She literally came across as a stupid adult woman. She doesn't even come across like she would be competent to run a daycare center. And she wanted to be the president of the United States. This is a woman who barely could submit to any political interviews.
Right.
Okay? And even the leftist news media whined and complained about her refusal to submit to any serious interviews other than maybe going on Oprah. Okay?
I heard she had the opportunity to be on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Yeah, 100.
She had a gazillion opportunities to come on and tell us how she's going to effectively run the country as president. And I defy anybody to get me a clip of any of her interviews where she made any statements of profundity. I mean, it's surreal that she got the nomination, but the reason why she got the nomination is because they had nobody else to turn to. Okay, in such a short period of time.
Do you see like a positive correlation between why the majority of atheists voted for Kamala? Do you see like a correlation between?
Yeah, because they know she's profoundly stupid, but because she'll sign the blank checks for the leftist radicals in the same way that Joe Biden did. Do you remember what the Wicked Witch of the West said in the I'm sorry, I was about to say the Wizard of Oz. What the Wicked Witch of the West said as Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, she said, "Open sesame, open Biden." She actually said that. She actually said that about him.
Yeah.
That they could put anything in front of him and he would sign it. Well, Kamala is just the female version of Joe Biden, just a little bit younger with longer hair and a little darker skin.
Would have controlled them. Yeah. They would have controlled her, right? Yeah.
She's a complete empty suit.
Absolutely.
That's why people in the skeptical community voted for her, because they're thrilled about the idea of mutilating underage human beings who are delusional.
Yeah.
They're thrilled about, passing unimaginable radical agendas. Okay. So that's why they tend to vote for that.
Yeah.
And you know what the funny thing is? The very people who claim that Christians are anti-science are embracing a social agenda. If you catch my drift, they're embracing a social agenda that is anti-science.
I catch your drift. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I catch your drift. Absolutely.
Yeah. If I was more specific than TikTok, the TikTok thought police would be kicking in the door with their nightsticks.
Exactly. Yeah. I understand what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Darth, do you think C8 could get another opportunity?
We'll give it a try. I don't suppose he's going to last too long, given the fact that he was a snowflake the last time. C8, would you explain to me why there's no God?
Why are you calling me names first? Like, can you just be professional?
Bye,
like,
snowflake.
Decent?
Bye,
You're
snowflake.
You're a
Bye,
snowflake.
snowflake.
Wow.
How appropriate that we're now in December that we've been visited by a snowflake.
It seems very appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah, I give him a second chance and immediately he's crying.
Darth, thank you though. I do appreciate you genuinely offering that. That was nice. That was kind of you.
The guy literally was exemplifying the kind of statement that a little child would make. It doesn't exist. Well, I don't believe it exists.
Yeah.
Do you remember? He said I was insulting him. Do you remember Toy Story 2? And Jessie, the cowgirl, says to Woody, "If the boot fits,
Yeah.
wear it."
Oh, Woody said that to her.
No, it was. Are you sure?
Yeah. He had to say it a second time because she threatened him to
If the
say it
boot, are you
again.
okay? So I'll say I got. Hold on, let me check that.
From my recollection, Jesse was upset and said, "Say it one more time," and then Woody said it slower, and it was like, "If the boot fits," and then I believe she attacked him physically. At least that's how I recollect or I recall it.
It was Jessie the cowgirl.
Oh, she did.
According to ChatGPT.
Whoa.
ChatGPT gets things wrong sometimes, but on really simplistic stuff like that, it's probably correct. Like when I asked ChatGPT, does radiometric isotope dating employ circular reasoning? And it came back and it obviously distilled this from some website and it said no, but it clearly does. You have to presuppose deep time in order to deploy radiometric isotope dating, and ChatGPT got it wrong. So, but ChatGPT said it was Jesse.
The prompts you input into it, that can affect how good it is too. So you have to be very
Yeah, your microphone is weak.
Microphone, yeah, we couldn't hear you well. If you can.
Yeah. No, as long as people recognize that ChatGPT is not the oracle of truth, but that it allows you to accomplish in a few seconds what may take a couple of hours of doing internet searches and distilling it down for yourself. So the information that ChatGPT gives you is only as good as the source that it comes from.
I was gonna say also that the more specific with your prompts, like the question you input, that can also help like get better answers.
Yes. Yeah. Like, for example, I plugged into ChatGPT. Was Kamala Harris's last tape video after she lost the election? Was she stone cold drunk? And ChatGPT wrote back, "It sure seems that way." No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking.
That would have been the most funniest thing ever.
No, looks that way.
I find it amazing for when I'm reading a text and the text is like dense and hard to understand, and I can just copy paste the text into ChatGPT and it can kind of break it down into simpler terms.
That is amazing. Well, all they're simply doing is they're taking what human beings could do on their own capabilities and they're building that into software. Which,
it's like a language modeling AI, right?
Yeah,
so it's good with like that.
It's just imitating what really smart people could do if you were to ask them.
Yeah.
Okay.
But because it's so good with language and it's really good at like explaining things in like simpler terms, as I found really helpful.
It is. It's a wonderful tool.
When Darth's not around, because Darth knows everything, right? But like when Darth's not around, we can ask ChatGPT.
No, I don't know everything. People ask me stuff all the time, and I'll go, I don't know. I'm not qualified to answer that, or I don't have an opinion. Yeah.
I'm teasing.
Yeah. I was listening to the Thinking Atheist Seth Andrews today on YouTube. The guy never ceases to blow me away with his stupidity. One of his criticisms about the flood was, did the penguins walk from Antarctica all the way into the Mideast?
Wow. That's
he actually, this is how stupid these people are.
I keep getting people pressing me on the flood. They're like, the flood's impossible. And I guess I'm like, well, okay, what dictates what's impossible?
They don't even know what they're talking about. Okay, the continents. See what people are thinking. They're misconceptualizing the flood. What they're thinking is that the water level above dry land was at the same level all the way around the globe. Okay, that's what they're thinking of, but that's not what the flood is referring to. What it's referring to is that the land was flooded.
Yeah.
Okay. So when it says the fountains of the deep erupted, okay, this is indirectly referring to geological upheaval, including what would be subterranean volcanic eruptions and including subterranean eruptions of water, because we know in various parts of the Earth's crust there are large pockets of water. So when you have a massive subterranean fissures, if you will, and geological upheaval, this would have triggered unimaginable earthquakes around the globe, causing if the earthquakes were persistent and recurrent, that would have caused recurrent tsunamis, okay, of a magnitude that we can't even begin to imagine. They would then spill over the edges of the continents from either direction. When this massive amount of water spilled over onto the continents, that water would then seek its own level over the dry land, flooding all of the land before it started to drain. Okay, so this is a completely different perspective on the flood versus the idea it rained for 40 days and 40 nights. When it says it rained for 40 days and 40 nights, the Bible is not indicating that that is the source of all the water. Okay, so it's not the idea that it rained for 40 days and 40 nights and the water just slowly arose at the same level at any coordinate on the planet.
Darth,
What it's referring to, yeah, go ahead.
Would you say that the other flood mythologies around the world, would that corroborate the biblical flood narrative, or would you say that's just kind of like not?
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny that critics mention this because it's actually a mark in support. Okay, so that if you had such a monumental event taking place, and then you had a small number of survivors, Noah and his children and their descendants, who then very quickly repopulated. If each man and woman had 5 children, within a very short period of time, you would have an exponential growth of population. So the flood occurrence would spread into different cultures as people spread out, and the idea of the flood would morph. Okay, so the idea that there are other, why would there be worldwide flood accounts in all different cultures around the world? Why?
Right. It would have to have happened.
Darth, did you get a chance to read Alvin Plantinga's book "Conflict with Science"? Right, conflict between religion and
I
science.
started reading it, but I haven't finished it. Okay.
Yeah.
The book is called "Where the Conflict Really Lies."
Where the conflict lies.
Yeah, I really like Alvin Plantinga, but we should just warn people. Although it's a really good book and he's a brilliant person to read and learn from, he doesn't dispute evolution.
Yeah. But Darth, what's really cool about this book, though, he doesn't address evolution in this book, but he actually goes and says why, like, the miracles of the Old Testament doesn't conflict with science, right? And he actually says that the real conflict lies with naturalism and science, and not with religion.
Exactly. Oh, I completely wholeheartedly agree with Plantinga on that. Okay, so miracles. See, atheists make this mistake all the time. They want to say that miracles are a violation of the laws of nature.
Yeah,
but that's not the biblical perspective.
Yeah.
It's not a violation or even a suspension of laws of nature. What we have are events that cause shock and awe, which are an event produced by the power of God that supersedes the already pre-existing laws of nature.
Mm.
So when God displays his power in an event that produces shock and awe, it can appear to an observer, whereupon they interpret it as the laws of nature were suspended, when in fact they were simply superseded.
What's funny is you wouldn't even be able to recognize a miracle without the laws of nature.
Look, when Jim, he was a missionary in the South America. What was his name? Jim Elliot. They went down there and they showed some of these unreached people a photograph, maybe a Polaroid, of some other villagers. Those villagers that they showed the photograph killed those missionaries because they had believed that the missionaries had killed and shrunken and flattened out their other villagers in the photograph. Okay? They had no idea what a camera was. They didn't know what even a portrait was.
Absolutely. And Darth, what do you think of like this idea that William Lane Craig professes progressive creationism? This is you would. What are your thoughts about like Craig and his? I think Craig also says
I think it's hot garbage. As much as I have learned a lot from William Lane Craig, he's just wrong on certain issues. He's drunk the Kool-Aid of evolution. Look, I listened to him cite certain evidences of evolution, and I just laughed that he was giving it. I mean, it was just ridiculous. He starts talking about ERVs, endogenous retroviruses, or pseudogenes.
Exactly.
These do not demonstrate a universal common ancestry.
But I think Darth. So Darth, so Craig would accept like the neo-Darwinian evolutionary theory. I thought he would reject it.
He
And
does.
believe-
He does.
Oh, he does. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird. That's super weird. Yeah. Because I remember him also
He
like.
also
Yeah.
he also has a very bizarre view, where he tries to straddle the fence and say that Genesis chapter 1 and 2 are mytho-history. That Adam and Eve were real people, but they were hominids that God placed the image of God in, which is just bizarre. Craig, I watched this myself. Craig mocked Christians who believe that there was a literal Garden of Eden. Craig, I saw him with my own eyes say it.
Oh my. Oh my. Yeah.
He mocked people who believe that there was an actual tree of knowledge of good and evil and a tree of life in the garden. He mocked it.
Wow. Wow. That's incredible.
Okay, so I do not question William Lane Craig's faith in Christ as Savior. I do not question that he is a Christian. But Craig comes across to be more biblical than he actually is.
Yeah.
Well, you don't think that? I thought the tree was like symbolic.
No.
Because literal.
No.
Yeah, it's
The tree.
literal.
Listen, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was just a tree.
Tree. But of course,
the idea of
the tree did not have any properties in itself that transferred the knowledge of good and evil. What the tree of the knowledge of evil consisted of as an ordinary tree that had fruit that you could eat off of the branches. And that when Adam and Eve took of the fruit, they learned of good and evil experientially because of their disobedience.
Yeah, that's
It
what
wasn't because there was some essence or spiritual substance within the fruit itself.
I thought it
It's just
represents a break of obedience
no,
to God's will.
no. It was the mental act and the behavioral product of taking the fruit and eating it. The act of disobedience
Yeah,
allowed them to come to know good and evil
right.
by
Well,
practice rather than to discern evil spiritually.
from what I understand, the word knowledge in that context means like when they started deciding for themselves what is good and evil as opposed to God deciding, listening to God.
Exactly. So the
Yeah.
tree was a literal tree. Now, the tree of life, on the other hand, was a real tree, but it was a tree that God endowed if Adam and Eve had not rebelled, being representative of the human race, that when God permitted them to eat of this, then eating of the tree of life would have provided for them not only immortality, but that they would never, it would permanentize their disposition toward God. Okay, that's why they were kicked out of the garden, so that they couldn't eat of the tree of life, because then that would have permanentized them in their state of disobedience. That is why God imposed temporal judgment of physical death. So upon death and then the resurrection, we can be freed of our sinful disposition.
So we could have never been redeemed had we eaten the tree of life. And
That is correct under that
Yeah.
scenario. So I believe that we have good grounds to say that the tree of life was endowed with God in some way of substance to endow immortality and the permanence of their disposition. That's why they were kicked out of the garden.
But
Now,
Darth,
if you sit there and start saying it's figurative,
it's a
you're
problem.
now destroying the very foundation of the doctrine of salvation.
yeah, because there's no reason for the atonement if there's no fall of man.
Why do you think, following the higher critics in Europe and the influence of evolution, right, that they started to discount the historicity of Genesis 1 and 2 and 3, that in a cascading way, it eventually will, it's like gangrene. You get gangrene in your toe, it's going to spread to the rest of your body and kill you. William Lane Craig, who is a professing believer, and I don't doubt that, right? What he is embracing a generation or so from now, if the Lord tarries, and those who embrace this type of thinking, it will be entirely destructive to the Christian worldview. If Genesis 1, 2, and 3 is a metaphor, okay, mytho-history, then everything else in the Bible is a metaphor, just like sin and our need for salvation.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, people. So, like, Darth, that doesn't make sense if someone's going to take it figurative. Because then, why did God incarnate? Like, why did God? Why did why did Jesus? Why was he
Yeah.
placed? Yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Look, if we're going to take something as metaphorical, symbolic, or figurative, we have to have good cause. Okay. There's no why, you see, this is, you see, Craig resorts to mocking Christians who believe in a literal tree of knowledge of good and evil, right? Because of his own cockamamie mytho-history. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, this position is, I mean, this is not standard biblical thinking.
They're not. And Darth, would you say, like, if someone is to reject the literal story of Christ like Craig. But Jesus himself in Matthew 19:19, when he was asked about the certificate of divorce, why didn't he say, well, during the time of it was since the beginning of Adam and Eve when God made them one flesh, right? Seems Jesus
Yeah.
here actually is taking the story literal, right? Jesus did believe that there was a lineage.
Of course he is. And
Yeah.
in Craig's book, In Search of a Historical Adam, right? It's a quite lengthy book. If you go to the index of the book, index of scripture verses, that passage in Matthew 19 where God or Jesus says, "Do you not know that he, God, made them, Adam and Eve, in the beginning?"
Yeah.
It's only referenced twice in the entire book, In Search of a Historical Adam, and there's almost no commentary on this passage. He ignores it.
Wow. Okay. Because it's very clear, right, Darth, that Jesus did take it to be literal. Maybe that he did take Adam and Eve to be literal figures. Because
Exactly.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
So, as much as I appreciate Craig's deep understanding of theology and philosophy, and he is somebody who I have and I will continue to learn a lot from, and I can respect that to a certain degree. And on the other hand, I think that he's nuts when it comes to the denial of the historicity of Adam as it is plainly expressed in the Bible. So this is what he has to do because he's drunk the Kool-Aid of evolution, but he still wants to be considered to be Bible believing. He's got to come up with this cockamamie mytho-history representation of Genesis 1 and 2. He absolutely denies that the order of creation as it was laid down in Genesis 1. You have to understand that he has been a big proponent, and he actually specialized in the Kalam cosmological argument and support for his main pillars for the Kalam cosmological argument is invoking the Big Bang, as though the Big Bang were some discovery, as opposed to a materialistic model of cosmological origins.
Yeah.
It's not a discovery, it's a model. And in fact, it's a model, a materialistic model that was adopted following the adoption of Darwinism. It's Darwinism applied to a cosmic scale. And you know what? Don't believe me, believe Dr. Leonard Susskind. Dr. Leonard Susskind, who is a brilliant physicist, and he's a fascinating person to listen to on YouTube. Okay. Very interesting guy, profoundly intelligent design. He, makes a joke and was funny. And then he said, and it's a short video. You just type in Leonard Susskind and intelligent design. It's like a 4 or 5 minute clip, and everybody should watch this. Okay. And he says, well, we used to think when we talk about how the universe is, fine tuned for life, blah, 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 and it looks designed. And he said, well, we used to think this way about biology until we discovered how life came to be. He's talking about Darwinism and evolution. He referred to Darwinistic
Wow.
evolution as a discovery.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay, it's not a
Yeah.
discovery. It's just an alternate materialistic model that is the opposite of what we might call natural revelation or natural theology. It was the reverse of William Paley's watchmaker argument. And Darwin knew Paley's argument when he went to religious school in college. He completely had previously embraced Paley's natural theology argument that the world exemplifies the way the way Paley reasoned. Darwin's theory is basically the a materialistic counter argument to Paley's watchmaker argument. And so once you accept evolution, right? Well, if you accept evolution, it means you've already drunk the Kool-Aid that deep time is true. If deep time is true, and you say, oh, well, if complexity arose out of non-complex states, then they apply that thinking to the cosmos. That out of a chaotic explosion, then given enough time, there's going to be episodes and pockets of complexity forming. Okay? And Leonard Susskind says in the video, Darwin showed us a better way. Okay? And he goes, and one day we'll discover what produced the incredible fine-tuning of the cosmological constants. He's applying a Darwinian thinking to the cosmos. Dr. Eugene Koonin says the same thing in The Logic of Chance. He says, with a multiverse, evolution is guaranteed. In other words, if you have enough time and trials, then the most improbable complexities can and will arise if you have an infinity of universes. Oh, how scientific of him to state that.
Yeah.
No, I kid you not. One of the world's foremost experts on evolution from a molecular biological perspective has to resort in his own book defending evolution. He has to invoke a multiverse in order to extricate himself from the virtual impossibility of random mutations producing the genome of the animal kingdom.
Darth, I have a question for you. Well, don't they claim that science is always based on like concrete, hard evidence, right? So, what would be like the concrete, hard evidence for the multiverse? Is it just going to be mere speculation and mere conjecture?
No, I think out of string theory, okay.
All right.
And for those of you who don't know, string theory is promulgated by some, but it's by no means held in consensus, and there are many people who object to string theory. But I think the idea of a multiverse, at least in the history of science in the last 100 years, is that certain notions of string theory kind of project the need for a multiverse. But this is just Darwinian thinking. You see, I could have predicted years ago saying that the more we begin to fathom the mind-boggling level of complexity at its smallest component level parts, that the improbability will be so great that they're going to have to invoke some form of special pleading or ad hoc rescue to circumvent that. When we reason probabilistically, you would have to abandon the theory of evolution. And that's when you invoke a multiverse to rescue this near statistical impossibility of evolution, that's the very definition of special pleading.
So, Darth, you would say like the real intention behind them positing that multiverse theory is because of this ad hoc rescue, right? Try to rescue.
Well, I'm not an expert on it. I'm just giving you my peace of mind of what I think about it. And although the multiverse theory is an idea that extends out of string theory, one of their powerful motivations for advancing that we're in a multiverse is to solve the problem of how the narrow parameters of all of the dozens of cosmological constants, all of which have to be very unimaginably precise and narrow. And if any one of them were not, life as we know it could not exist anywhere in the universe. So they have to account for this what we have seemingly come to understand, either by chance, necessity, or design, right? Well, they don't have a proposed mechanism that could account for this. And they're certainly not going to acknowledge God as the designer. So now what they do is they have a chance model. And the chance model is a multiverse that it's kind of a quasi mechanistic, but also quasi chance, in that if you have an infinity or up to an infinity of multiverses, then you're going to have any number of universes that would be statistically or probabilistically virtually impossible to occur happen.
What we have here is an ultimate and absolute ad hoc rescue in the form of the in the form of
Exactly.
and
Darwin said, natural selection, evolution is my God, is my deity. Well, the multiverse is now their God.
well, it's funny how they'll go, well, you believe a God made a donkey and a snake talk? And well, it's like, well, yeah, in a multiverse, right? There's going to be one multiverse where a donkey and a snake talked, right? I mean, like, it's just how can they claim like, oh, we're believing fairy tales, and then they believe in a multiverse? It's funny.
Well, first of all, they're not even accurately representing what we believe. We do not believe that a natural donkey, without any type of non-naturalistic incursion, started talking. We believe that there are other agents in addition to human beings that the Bible refers to as agents that sometimes involve themselves in human affairs, and that God used an angel, or God directly himself caused the donkey to speak. So why don't they sit there and say, well, you believe that God made the donkey speak as to warn Balaam? Well, yeah, what's the problem with that? But they don't want to do that. They want to attack a straw man. Oh, you just believe a donkey talked. No, I don't believe a donkey just talked. I believe that God supernaturally made the donkey talk.
Oh yeah, exactly. It's that framing that they
Just
always.
like, hold on a second. Just like when I say, hey, Siri, what's the weather going to be tomorrow? This little tiny box in my hand is magically talking to me.
Or like God can create a universe, but somehow making a donkey talk is beyond him. Creates a universe.
So God,
problem.
so God as the grand designer supernaturally intervenes, and he makes something that ordinarily couldn't talk. How is it that a little box in my hand, and when I talk to it, it seemingly can tell me answers to questions that would take me hours or years to figure out? How is that magic?
But I was trying to point out when they talk about, well, the Bible makes these claims that are, extraordinary. We can't believe these claims, but then they turn around and believe that any extraordinary, like,
so is naturalism an extraordinary? Naturalism is an extraordinary claim.
That's my point. Like when they believe in multiverse or deep time or materialism or something, these are extraordinary claims as well. So they're BSing. They're hypocrites.
Yeah.
Special pleading.
Saying that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Saying that we're in a not God world, that's not an ordinary claim.
Hey, Darth. God bless. God bless,
Hey.
Darth. Long time no talk, man.
Ahoy.
Wait, so I have a question real quick. So some atheists, they'll say that, they'll say, well, if God can be eternal, why can't the universe be eternal? So do young Earth creationists?
Why can't it? Well, because God has revealed that he's eternal. Say, did the universe reveal that it's eternal?
Nope.
And they'll say, well, but I don't accept that. Say, good, I don't accept your assertion that the universe is eternal. Okay, because you haven't provided a reason why you should believe that. You know what's interesting? They do the very thing, right? So if they say, well, why can't the universe be eternal? And I'll say, well, why can't God be eternal?
We're not saying that it's not as if like the universe is logically impossible to say it's eternal, but it's like you wouldn't be able to justify that claim, right?
Yeah, like what I mean by
what they're doing is, okay, I'll give you an example of an imaginary dialogue actually that I've had, and I'll say, how is it that God doesn't exist? And they'll say, well, God isn't needed. Well, what's the basis of saying God isn't needed? Say, well, we have a naturalistic explanation for the world. I mean, this is colossally stupid. Simply offering me a counter explanation. How is it that that counter explanation is true and veridical? How?
For example, like for any phenomena, there could be a million explanations. Say like someone got healed from cancer. It could be that natural reasons they got healed from cancer, or it could be like supernatural reasons that God intervened. And there'd be the data would be indistinguishable between
Well,
both
here's the
explanations.
problem. When we present that God is, and he is the eternal one, we're not just invoking it as a mere explanation. That's what they would that's the straw man that they're responding to. What we're saying is that the world is revelatory of God by God, that the world is emblematic and entails ultimate design and intentionality from the eternal one, and that it's revelatory. And they're going to say, oh, I don't accept that the eternal one God is there. I don't accept that it's revelatory. Say, good. How is a natural world being eternal? How is that revelatory?
Yep.
So you ask them this question. This is it's a piece of gold that you're going to thank me for forever. Okay. The question is, can God as the ground of all being, the eternal one, be known unless he purposes to be known? If he didn't purpose to be known, could he be known? And the answer is no. So when the atheist says God cannot be known unless God as the ground of being purposes to be known, that when they posit a material universe that is itself eternal, did the foundation of the eternal world purpose to be known?
Right.
And so if the answer is yes or no, they have problems either way. How did the universe, okay, which is not a stipulation of concreteness, but is a single term of an abstraction of a set of a plurality of concrete states, did each and every one of the diversity of things within the set of the universe, did each one of these things reveal to the atheist that they're eternal? Did any particular entity within the set of the universe reveal to them that it's eternal?
Darth, is it going to
No.
follow? Would it follow because so like to make any claim about God, we can only do so through revelation, and since to claim God does not exist is a claim about God, that the only way they could know God doesn't exist is if God would reveal he doesn't exist, which would
be a contradiction.
Yes.
Yeah. So the point is, in a non-revelatory environment, which they are claiming to be in, then nothing could be known about God. So you couldn't say what is or is not compatible with God. And then, of course, what they're going to do is they will shapeshift. They're going, well, then an all-loving God cannot exist because there's evil. But you see, you cannot say what would or would not be compatible with the plan of creation redemption of an all-loving God. You can't say what's compatible and not compatible with his plan. Notice they don't want to talk about God's plan. They just want to talk about God as a monolith of benevolence. That death and suffering and evil would be incompatible with a monolith of benevolence. But that's not the God of the Bible. We're talking about God of the Bible, who is perfect in all of his attributes, is a God who has a plan that we are in the midst of. So when they say that evil is incompatible with God, they're in effect saying it's incompatible with his plan. How is it incompatible with his plan? And I'm saying, well, because a loving God wouldn't do that. And how would you know that?
Right. I have another question, Darth, real quick. Can you explain how what's it called? Can you explain how carbon-14 dating works and how it gets WS after 2,000 years ish?
Okay, so within the study of atoms and molecules, what we found out is that atoms are in a state of decay, right? That they emit certain subatomic particles. And so they're starting to internally break down over time. And different atomic states or elements decay at different rates, right? So certain atomic states can decay within a split second. Other things would take millions of years to ultimately decay, right? So on the periodic table, all the different elements are believed to decay at a constant rate, which is called the half-life, right? So if you have a certain element, the half-life would mean after a certain period of time, half of that will be left. And then after the same period of time again, half of that will be left. That's why it's called a half-life. So what they're doing is they are first operating under the presupposition, unjustified, mind you, that the Earth is the product of eons of time, right? Deep time. Working on that underlying assumption, they then say, oh, well, since the Earth and the rocks in question are really, really old, we can then isolate certain isotopes that have been decaying over time from their alleged parent element. And it would take a certain amount of time to do that. So what we'll do is we can count backwards from the isolated isotope backwards to the parent element, and then we think we can figure out how old it is. But that's all based upon circular reasoning. You understand? And also, we don't know what the precise atomic state was for the isotope in question was when it began, okay? Because if young Earth creationism is true, that means counting backwards based upon the half-life decay past that period of time means that that extrapolation is false. So they're starting off with an a priori conviction that deep time is true and young Earth creationism is false. Another thing is this: there's a lot of assumptions. There's the assumption that the isotope in question is not a contamination of the rock by groundwater, or that it hasn't been contaminated in the laboratory, or that the rate of atomic decay has remained the same over time or under other environmental conditions. So you see, radiometric isotope dating, more commonly known as carbon dating, is not this foolproof scientific way giving you the birth certificate of the isotope.
Right. Is radiometric isotope dating when they date the Earth in specific?
Radiometric isotope dating has to do with isolating some isotope,
right?
And then under the proviso or the assumption that the Earth is old, okay, that because we're already presupposing that the Earth is the product of deep time and the rock is the product of deep time, we can then count backwards based upon the half-life decay. But that calculation or extrapolation is only as good as your first assumption that the rock is the product of deep time. So what they'll do is they'll go, oh, look at the extrapolation based upon the daughter element extrapolated back to its parent element. Look, it's old. No, but you have to presuppose it's old first. Otherwise, you can't count backwards to the alleged parent element.
Yeah. But you can't carbon-14 date the Earth, right? You have to do radiometric, right?
Carbon-14 is a subset of radiometric isotope dating. Carbon-14 has to do that carbon-14, okay, carbon-14 goes into the atmosphere, right? Certain molecules are bombarded. I don't know what the actual the title of the element is, but it gets bombarded by cosmic rays and it turns into carbon-14.
Yeah.
Then as this molecule comes to Earth, okay, or falls to the surface, and organic material consumes the carbon-14, it then starts to decay. And the half-life for carbon-14 is 5,000 years. So if you have a sample of carbon-14, in 5,000 years, you'll have half of that left. Then in 5,000 more years, you'll have half of that left. So the total amount of half-life is on the order of 50,000 years. So carbon-14 dating only is relevant and meaningful when the substance in question, you can cross-reference it to cultural, historical, or cultural guidelines.
Right.
All right. So if you're talking about carbon dating something that's under 6,000 years old, it might be correct. If you're dating something through carbon-14 that you deem is older than 6,000 years old, let's say 20, 30, or 40, you're now operating under the same a priori assumption of deep time.
Right. And
But
I want
just
you
keep in mind, many people that you will listen to and talk to will use the word carbon dating as thinking it's the same as radiometric isotope dating. Most people don't understand the difference.
Right.
Now, usually what you should do is ignore their misunderstanding and just talk about radiometric isotope dating. When they mention carbon dating, they're usually not talking about testing organic material that is now deceased that ingested carbon-14. They're talking about carbon-14 as a synonym for any number of radiometric isotope dating methods like uranium to lead, strontium to thorium, or whatever.
Yeah. And can you explain to me and the audience how where all these presuppositions about deep time started? I know it started with Charles Lyell, so can you expand on that?
Well, it goes back thousands of years. The ancient pagans and even the Hindus believed that the universe has been around, a gazillion years. Okay, so the notion of deep time goes way back in paganism. The modern iteration of it is in Western civilization. Started in about, and I'm not an expert, but what little I have read, it started in around, I would say, the latter part of the 18th century and then accelerating going into the 19th century. So Darwin published in 1859, which was slightly more than half within the 19th century. Darwin was profoundly influenced by geologist Charles Lyell. Lyell himself was influenced by his predecessor, James Hutton. So the two big names, among others, in promulgating the notion that the Earth is to be understood as the product of deep time as opposed to young Earth creationism are James Hutton, who preceded Lyell, and then Lyell. But Lyell gets more of a credit because he wrote 3 volumes called Principles of Geology that were very persuasive and basically were like a landmark for the radical shift in geology from catastrophism to uniformitarianism. So Charles Lyell gets the main blame, but he's certainly not the only one. And then Darwin accepted this, and when people accept, the moment you accept evolution, you can't accept it without first accepting deep time. Okay? And once people accept evolution, well, then deep time's not even a question anymore. You understand?
Right. And
so what you have is in the 20th century, where the theory of evolution was becoming solidified, pervasive, and held in consensus, then they're now, from their perspective, I don't agree with it, but from their perspective now, once you drink the Kool-Aid of evolution, then there's no longer a question as to that the fact that the Earth and its contents are the product of deep time. So if then, operating under that a priori conviction that the Earth and its contents are the product of deep time, well, guess what? If we find an isotope and we count backwards based on the half-life decay, we can figure out how old it is. But that's all based upon an untestable assumption that deep time is true.
And can you also what would you say to people like Stephen C. Meyer who don't believe in evolution but hold on to deep time? It seems kind of pointless.
I would challenge him first and foremost biblically.
Right.
And then secondarily, I would say, good. What's your support for deep time? You have to understand that deep time has a stranglehold in the sciences.
Yeah.
Okay? Look, there are a number, have been and are and will be Christians. They believe the Bible is the word of God, but then when they try to harmonize it with the prevailing consensus. As much as I love and appreciate Stephen Meyer, really love the guy. I have some of his books. I
Yeah.
listen to his lectures. I've learned a lot from him. I will learn a lot from him. I have a deep amount of appreciation and respect for him. However, his acceptance of deep time from a Christian perspective is wrong. Okay? Now, does that mean I don't appreciate the fantastic work he's doing in advocating intelligence?
Doing great work, right? But the problem is this, is that intelligent design is inadequate and it's flawed because it's not defending design from a revelational point of view. It's just defending design from a probabilistic point of view.
Yep. I had another question, but I forgot. I'm trying to think.
Look, his stuff is good to listen to as long as you don't get sucked into accepting his view of deep time. But his challenges against evolution are fantastic.
Right. Ooh, what would you say to the about the Homo sapien bones, all this stuff? Like, what would you say to that? Are they just all fake?
They've been wrong time and time again as their interpretation and representation of these bones. When I was a child, okay, I'm 63. If you had gone to any published works about, quote, the Neanderthals, they were depicted like stupid cavemen.
Yeah.
Now, with all sorts of discoveries of fossilized remains, which are identified as, quote, Neanderthal DNA, the descriptions of their capabilities and their cultural practices are almost indistinguishable from modern man.
Yep.
Okay. And look, that's just happened within the span of 60 years, which is a drop in the bucket. So there have been so many garbage explanations, like when they talk about Lucy, right? You ever heard of Lucy?
I think so, yeah.
Lucy is considered to be a transitional form, right? But even that's bullshit. There's no feet were discovered with Lucy. When you see artistic renditions of Lucy, they depict Lucy with human-like feet. Another thing is this: the hip bone in the Lucy fossil was actually manipulated by a paleontologist in order to make it more human-like.
I'm going to ask a follow-up question.
People don't know this.
Can I ask a follow-up question on the hip bone? I'm going to steel man what they would say. They would say, well, what's your source for that? What would you say to that?
Just look it up. The main archaeologist, or excuse me, paleontologist, okay, first of all, they don't actually, as far as I know, they don't actually do any procedures on the bone. What they do is they replicate these things in substances where they then can work on it. Well, part of the hip bone was crushed and deformed. And so he carved it in such a way under the guise that he was simply reconstructing what its original state was. Right? But was he reconstructing it, or was he manipulating it in a certain way to make the hip bone of Lucy appear to be more human-like and upright? You can look, don't take my word for it. There's stuff out on the internet documenting that he did in fact it. Now, they're not going to say
the guy's name.
that he manipulated the finding. They're going to say he reconstructed it. But that's not what happened.
Right.
Okay? He had to manipulate the replica of the hip and carve it away, quote to quote, reconstruct it. Without the so-called reconstruction, then the hip bone couldn't have made a Lucy upright.
Yeah.
So, by the way,
what's the
hold on a second? Did I ever send you the Christmas present?
Yeah, you did. Yeah, I've
Okay,
been
if you go to the creation folder,
Yep.
there are literally hundreds of books in there that go into detail about this.
Do you know one in particular that talks about that specific instance that you're talking about?
No, but if you just peruse through the title, there's probably a good dozen or so books that deal with it.
Okay. Yeah.
Just go look through the titles. Also, you could just go to Answers in Genesis. They have fantastic articles dealing with this stuff.
Wouldn't the atheists make fun of that? They would say, Answers in Genesis. What do you think about that?
Who cares what they make fun of it? Okay, what they're doing is they're making fun of a minority source. The bottom line is this: there is so much misinformation been represented about fossils that isn't even funny. Like, for example, how many people in the world today believe that the fossilized remains that we have, called the fossil record, is a powerful testimony of biological evolution? Well, the vast majority of people go, yeah. But if you read, most paleontologists know the trade secret that the fossil record is not an exemplar of transition. It's an exemplar of stasis.
Right.
The fossil record is a piss poor evidence for evolution.
Don't they? They also have like animals just appearing out of nowhere and filling a niche in an environment.
The creatures in the fossil record, even from an evolutionary perspective, they appear abruptly and they disappear abruptly without numerous transitional forms. And only the creatures that do appear are only to be considered the tips and the nodes on the phylogenetic tree. So this problem was understood by Darwin in Darwin's day, and this problem still persists to this day. And it's widely known by paleontologists, but they don't educate the masses about this, because to do so would erode and undermine confidence that the fossil record is a powerful testimony of gradualistic Darwinian evolution.
Right. What would you say? What was I going to ask? Yeah. Oh yeah. Can you have you heard of that Jason Lyle prediction of the elements? They said that they found like elements or something outside of the three that the Big Bang produced. Remember that?
I'm not familiar with that. I know that he predicted that when the James Webb Space Telescope went online, we would see fully formed galaxies.
Yeah,
and that's what they saw.
Yeah, can you explain that a little bit simplified?
Yeah, so under the standard model, the Big Bang cosmology, that they assume that light travels at 300,000 kilometers per second in space, okay? And so it would take light from the farthest edges of the known universe, almost not quite 14 billion years to reach us, given the distance. Okay, because light is very fast to us, but in terms of the depth and breadth of space, light is slow, considering the distances of deep space.
Yeah.
So on the James Webb Space Telescope, it would now begin to see the farthest outermost parts of the universe that even the Hubble couldn't see. So they expected that they would be receiving electromagnetic spectrum of various light just arriving to us, giving us a picture of what happened a little more than 13 billion years ago.
Yeah.
So what they expected to see were the galaxies in their early formation, not highly developed and complex structured galaxies. And when they saw this, they were blindsided by it. It sent shockwaves through astronomers. Not so much for them to sit there and say, wow, I guess the Bible was right. No. Now they're just coming up with another ad hoc reasoning to explain away this problem.
Yeah, just like the they see thing where they put on the glasses and they lie. And you can see all the lies.
You don't understand this is how science works, that when they discover evidence that goes against a prevailing like sort of idea in science, they come up with an ad hoc rescue to, or they ignore whatever data that would contradict
This
their
is human nature.
Yeah.
Scientists are not as clean and pure as the wind-driven snow. There are scientists who might give up some of their pet theories, but others, no, they're not going to give it up. They're just going to say, well, this is just an anomaly, and we'll figure out in a few years a way to explain this anomaly or this outlier. So the James Webb Space Telescopes, what they showed us, is inconsistent with Big Bang cosmology.
What are they going to say, Darth? Is that the universe is older or something?
Well, they're going to come up with some other mental gymnastics. They're certainly not going to embrace the creationist model.
Right.
Yeah.
I was thinking maybe they could just say...
It says in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, in the last days God will send a damning delusion to them who believe a lie, who receive not a love of the truth. Now, we need to look at that in reverse order. Not receiving the love of the truth is the non-acceptance, the rejection of God's revelation in creation and or through the prophets in Christ codified in the Bible. When we reject the revelation of God, we succumb instantaneously to the lie. The lie is worshiping the creation. It is the refusal to accept the creator-creature distinction and to believe that the world as a whole is our point of ultimate origin. That idea that the world alone, not being created by God, is our ultimate point of origin is pervasive now throughout the world, due in part to Charles Darwin's theory of evolution that was then applied to the cosmos. So that's what the Bible calls a lie. So the final deception of the Antichrist, the damning delusion, will be facilitated and grounded in what is called the lie. That man is the king of the hill in this universe, not God, man. And that's going to be the basis of the Antichrist, Satan. Satan is going to possess the man of sin, the Antichrist, and the lie that the world is our ultimate point of origin and not God will be the basis of the worldwide deception. That is referred to as the damning delusion. So the damning delusion will only be ultimately facilitated on top of and depending upon the lie, which is, of course, believing that the world is your ultimate point of origin. And you believe that because you don't receive a love of the truth. Check it out in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. God will send a damning delusion to them who believe the lie, who receive not a love of the truth.
I think it's like, I like the way you put it, where like Satan is happy that we believe any lie except for like the truth, right? So
he's happy even if you believe in God, as long as you believe
false God or
God
whatever.
of your own manufacturing.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's just funny how people will latch on to like anything but God, and then they go on these like Easter egg hunts to find these reasons why.
Well, that's why Jesus said he is the father of lies. Look, it's not his intent to get everyone to be an atheist. If he can get you to be an atheist, fine. If he can get you to believe in some concept of God that is a counterfeit and not one that accurately reflects what God has revealed in creation and through Jesus Christ, he's happy if you believe that too. Okay?
You know, I wonder in the past if like these like demonic entities actually posed as gods and got people to worship them, and that's
Well, of course they did.
Yeah.
Right? But now we've foisted a new God in our modern era, and that God is man. Man, look, if you listen to people like Michio Kaku, or who is a famous scientist, and other people, they talk about different levels of civilizations and our ability to manipulate and control the external physical world. And the higher up you go, or depending on how the scale goes, you have a civilization that can, let's say, make fire. Then you have a civilization that can make dams and skyscrapers and planes. And then you have a civilization that can control weather, okay? And then you have civilizations that can control planets and solar systems, right? This is just paganism in the guise of science.
Yeah.
A TikTok live streamer on here who's got, the Sistine Chapel famous where like Adam and God are like touching hands. So he's got that scene, but it's God's like a robot and his position. So it's like a robotic hand reaching out to create Adam. And he's saying he believes God is an AI in the future that creates. So like,
that's
it's
dumb.
just funny. It's just funny to me what like the things people believe, anything but Jesus. Like,
yep.
Wait, Darth, I have a
see,
question.
here's the thing: is this when we do not accept the love of the truth? The love of the truth is the revelation of God in creation through the prophets, ultimately in Jesus Christ, codified in the Bible. When you do not accept what God reveals in plain language, you inevitably will be deceived one way or another, whether you're an atheist or you're a Jehovah's Witness. Okay? Whether you're an atheist or you're a Muslim. Okay? When you don't accept the plain language of the Bible, you fall for deception.
it seems like if you're a liar, God will allow you to believe lies. But if you repent and turn towards the truth in Jesus, then by the grace of God, He will give you like discernment. And you can.
Garth, I have a question.
How can we know what the Bible says? There's so many people who disagree. Yeah, well, that's under the proviso that the problem is the Bible and not the sinful hearts of people who don't want to accept the plain language where God spoke in ordinary language. Okay? Notice how they put the blame on the Bible and not on the people who have divergent views.
Right, because communication is a two-way street, right? So if God can communicate a message perfectly, it's still the person has to interpret the communication.
So when we don't have proper motives and intents, then we will fall prey to misrepresenting. Look, I was listening yesterday to an atheist schmuck on TikTok, okay? And I showed up on his stream, and he's doing, and when you look at him, I'm not going to mention his name so TikTok can't say I'm delivering hate speech or whatever, but when you look at this guy, he literally has a demonic look in his eyes. I mean, it's uncanny, right? And the banner says there is no God. And he saw that I entered the chat, and he groaned. And then somebody said, "Oh, bring him up." And he goes, "I'm not bringing him up." And he goes, "Presup is ridiculous." And then he proceeded to allegedly represent my biblical presuppositional model, which was a complete straw man caricature of my position.
Yeah.
And when I wrote in the text, "You have completely misrepresented what my position is," he then responded to the audience, "I'm not bringing Darth Dawkins up. He's a twat." Okay?
Wow.
So the guy had complete powers of moderation, and yet he's still afraid to talk with me.
He's saving you time because obviously, if he's like going to be like that, then there's no point talking.
Oh, and by the way, later on, when asked when he felt that he was dealing with low hanging fruit, he admitted that the title of his stream, "There Is No God," was clickbait. I kid you not. He categorically and clearly admitted that it was clickbait. He says, "I can't actually prove there's no God.
Right.
I'm just doing that to get people in here."
Yeah, he's rage baiting. Yeah.
He's clickbaiting.
Darth, I have a question. I know some people that like they believe that we're living in a simulation or something. Do you believe that, or?
Yeah, they need to take their meds.
People like Vor, Voice of Reason official, he believes that. I've talked to him.
That's patently absurd.
He says not a simulation like the Matrix, but a simulation like from God or something. I don't know.
That's not what the Bible teaches.
He says it does, but I didn't really ask him.
No. The Bible depicts the creation as being concrete,
right?
Rather than that the things, the states of affairs in there are just conceptual. A simulation. Look, if you have Sims or whatever the simulations are, the actual agents and things that are represented concrete, they're not there. It's just conceptual. The Bible depicts the world as concrete, not conceptual. So this idea that the world is a simulation, the product of God, that's absurd that Vor advocates that. It's literally absurd. So was the resurrection of Jesus a simulation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Weird. Yeah.
Because Christ died for our sins. Was that a simulation?
Right.
I mean, I'm shocked to hear that Vor has said that.
Yeah, I don't know how he explains it, but it's like kind of weird. I don't know.
Yeah, chapter and verse.
Right. All right. Well, that's pretty much all the questions I had, Darth. I gotta get going to work here, so yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a break too.
Yeah. All right. God bless, guys.
But as usual, we've been on here for a while. We're chewing the fat, and we're not having any intelligent opposition. What does that tell you? They only want to go after low-hanging fruit.
Yep. All right. Well, God bless, guys. God bless.
All right. See you guys later.
All right, I'm on the stream, guy. See you guys later. Well, yeah, we would bring atheists up, but no one's requesting to come up.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I was hoping to discuss with Wing Chung. It's done, but I know he's at work, or they're at work. So.
Oh, they're at work.
Yeah, I believe that's what they stated. He had some really cool insights. I'm not certain on his position of belief in divinity or God.
Steve March never has clickbait backgrounds. But yeah, but I can defend the things I say. So it's not clickbait. If I actually make an argument to support what I'm saying, that's not clickbait.
Mm-hmm. So, Precept, what are your beliefs on God? I guess, how do you define God? You know what I mean?
I don't know. I mean, I'm a Christian. I don't know. What do you...
See, so, man, this is weird. The reason I ask is because, I guess in my worldview, God transcends Christianity even.
Okay, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. There's no worldview that's not the Christian worldview that works.
It could be.
No. The Christian worldview is necessary.
Yeah, I don't disagree. But I guess my point in saying that is, so I believe in Christ, as a Messiah, not the solo Messiah.
This is heretical.
Yeah, I mean, it could be.
All right, I'm gonna end the live. I'm tired. Thanks for coming, man.
Yeah, hey, Precept, thank you, man. I do appreciate it. I just kind of want to better understand, but hopefully sometime next time.
All right, sounds good. See ya.